6:05, so I will call the meeting to order. Welcome to the school committee meeting of January 29th, 2026. This meeting will be conducted in a hybrid format. All members are in person, but some of our guests may be remote. We will have a roll call to confirm we have quorum. Colleen?
Present. Here.
Percio here.
Wiseman here.
Loomis here.
Hamilton present.
Great. The meeting is open to the public and will be broadcast by ECAT. If any members of the public here in person wish to make a comment during the public comment period, you will be invited to do so, and we ask you to share your name and address for the record. All remarks should be addressed to the full committee through the chair. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to state their comment, and we will allow for a total of 15 minutes for public comment. School committee members will not respond to public comments, but you are welcome to email us any questions or additional comments. Next item on the agenda, 5th grade service learning project presentation. Dr. Cabral.
We're so excited to welcome 5th graders here this evening. The health classes of Mr. Beck, who is the health and wellness teacher at Richardson Olmsted, were participants in a service learning project at Mr. Beck's direction. Mr. Getchell is also here this evening with students Will, Evan, Summer, and Lily. They are going to give us a presentation on their experience with their service learning project and sharing posters and signs that they compiled as part of this project. I welcome them to come up now, please.
So, I'm going to let Mr. Beck introduce this. He is such a creative, brilliant lesson designer. He's created so much of all of our health programming. He is the pioneer health teacher of RO. Has built a curriculum from scratch. He is a loving figure at our school. Kids love him. We get why. It spreads a lot of joy around the school. This is just one example of it. So, Devin, you can explain the project.
Thank you, Mr. Ketchel. So, partnered with Sarah's Village. When the grant process came out, I applied for a grant to create basically positive signs for their yards. So I applied for the grant, and luckily I was able to get it. So Sarah's Village was able to donate close to $1,000, and our RO PTA also matched that. So we raised almost $2,000 to create yard signs. So each of the 10 5th grade classes, they started by creating their own individual positive slogans. So every student made one. And then each group, there are 6 groups in the class, they all picked the one for their group. And then each class ultimately picked one slogan for each of the signs. So we have 10 different ones here. These went home. We have 300 signs printed. Every student was able to go home with a yard sign due to Sarah's Village, who does great local nonprofit work with Easton and Norton, and then also the ROPTA. It's actually been so successful that I've had numerous emails of people in town that have seen it and reached out asking, how can I get a sign? So because of that, and because of donations that have filtered into Sarah's Village, they just let me know that they have enough money in the budget. They are going to print another 300 signs, which is fantastic. So our kind of pipe dream goal is to kind of flood the town with positivity, right? Create a positive. Driving by, you're having a tough day, put a smile on your face. If you're having a good day, put a smile on your face anyway, right? We could all use another smile. But I did nothing with the slogans. This was 100% the students. I went over Sarah's Village, what it meant, why we were doing it, and then I stepped back and the kids worked wonderfully together, coming up with their own slogans, their own mottos, some really creative ones, as you can see, really positive ones. I I've never taught a lesson where not a single student argued about anything, except until this one. And they asked, can we vote for our own? I said, sure. And I had a couple kids like, well, we're all just gonna vote for our own. I said, we'll see. And they didn't. We had clear winners because they were actually mature enough to realize I actually like that a little better. It means a little bit more to me. Puts a bigger smile on my face, so I'm gonna go with that one. So these are the 10 winners. And we're gonna order more. If you would like a sign, if you're watching and would like a sign, please feel free to email me. We do ask, if able, give a small donation to Sarah's Village. If you can't, we're still happy to give you a sign to spread the positivity. Local businesses, general public, anybody that wants a sign. Wait till the snow's gone, and then we'll put it back in the yards. I don't know if you guys want to add anything about what it was like to participate in it. Great sign hold today.
Anything that you like really remember?
Have you seen a lot driving through town?
Yeah, really? Because of the snow.
Now,
Do you
in
want
a
to
month
read
when it's all gone, they'll come back up.
have them
Sure.
read what's on them?
You guys want to read a couple? Evan, you want to read the first?
Every mile a bigger smile, and don't let others tear you down.
Bill, you want to read this too?
Okay. Kindness matters just like you, and you are not alone. People care even if you don't see it. Don't stop believing. Life is short, spend it smiling. Being different is a superpower.
You want to read yours too?
Sure. You are loved no matter what, and you.
Thank you very much for the time, and if you'd like a sign, we've got plenty.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, parents who brought them down for us to see.
Yes, thank you so much.
Committee members want to make any comments? Want any signs?
Oh,
I want a sign.
I want a sign. I will happily donate, but I want a sign. I think incredible things of Sarah's Village and incredible things of this work. It was amazing to drive around town.
Yeah, that's a great idea. All right, we're just going to give a minute to get everyone settled, and then we will continue.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
I kind of wanted them to leave the signs. That was it right there.
I'm going to get our up.
The rest of it. I meant more just positivity throughout the school.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Beck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, student representative to the school committee update. Veronica?
Hello. So for Blanche, Ames, and Aura, we don't have too much. Our representatives are planning to meet with their respective principals either, I think, tomorrow and in the next couple weeks. Obviously, Aura has a lot of positivity going on right now, which is really cool to see. And then I'll give it to Brendan for EMS.
Thank you. It's tough to follow fifth graders, but I met with students and I delivered some of the rationale for some of the things that they brought up, including the H-block, way start ideas, food providers, phone policy, bell schedule, lockers, backpacks, to name a few. They talk about engagement a lot, about how they find packets and worksheets in the same routine of slideshow and notes boring, but they recognize that there's no one-shoe-fits-all approach, and it's incredibly subjective to the student. I would actually prefer that someone lectures the entire time. And then the solution that they offered was to have more interactive activities, more choice, working independently with partners, with groups, and then how they show their mastery in content, whether that be an essay or a slideshow. You always hear a recurring theme of real life application. You're always going to hear this, whether that's at EMS or some other state, that they want to learn about taxes, how to get a job, financial literacy, stocks, right? That's why they appreciate civics, because of its applicability in society. Student voice, methods to offer their insight and input into school policy and rules always seem to be talked about. Food service, which got mixed reviews, the new one. And then AI, where the vast majority, which was basically unanimous from the small sample size that I met with, use because it's helpful, it's more efficient, it's easier, convenient to them. But, so Ms. Carroll's gonna go back, hopefully review and revise that handbook to deal with the swiftly changing technology. Then I met with Mr. Carroll, which is always a blast meeting with Ms. Carroll. Master schedule committee is going to be established with key stakeholders to review their schedule, stabilize class sizes, the teaming system they're going to look at, and then we talked about real life value of the class, which after some conversation, Mr. Carroll looks like in anticipation, it's not a done deal, with an increase in special enrollment and a decline in music enrollment, he would look to add a financial literacy or fiscal responsibility class, which would teach the stuff that students want to kind of subdue those complaints a little bit. And then I don't know if you guys saw digital literacy, but I remember pushing for AI literacy as well with this this changing world. It's important that we teach that as well. Something as little as a water filtered light being on red, and then simple miscommunication whether filters really works. We just got to put a sign up there. That matters as well. More concrete student voice rather than spontaneous or occasional focus visits or a Google form. We're gonna discuss with students and his faculty senate about a student senate. So ensuring it would be mutual beneficial, where he would look for their input and recommendations, and they would pose their opinions on the school. And we're gonna look at the details and keep you posted on that. But with both the student voice and this class, it's prudence and preparation. We want to make sure that these things remain intact after our times at EMS. Hopefully you would agree. And then it needs to be an environment of candor, sincerity, and trust, because otherwise it's going to be useless. So asking those tough questions and not shying away or evading from reality creates trust, as I've learned through my time at EMS. And then engagement. We talked about culturally responsive teaching, right? Building relationships with students, finding out their interests, and then tailoring lessons. So if you know you have 7 kids that like baseball, you create velocity questions about baseball. But it really is my opinion that we should trust our great teachers enough to teach well enough at the end of the day. Youth Health Survey, we're both eagerly awaiting those belonging numbers to focus on that as well. And I might have brought this up at a prior meeting, but I have to say the great health teacher at EMS, Ms. Sparrow, who has that Nest Club that helps kids find connections and friends, that's worth mentioning, and I appreciate someone taking the time to do that because it's the very embodiment of what it means to be a good teacher, helping kids want to come to school to learn. It's just what a good person does. Chromebook cart, they've reassessed and they've pushed more to foreign language and carry cases with students with accommodations, and so I'm told that they're in overall better shape there. And then AI, we both enthusiastically agreed that we can't shy away from it. It's not going anywhere. So we need to teach responsibly the proper use of it. Because if we're not, we're just inadvertently hurting students down the line in the future, so we have to adapt, we have to evolve to it. That's all I have. Of course, always welcome to questions, comments, concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments, concerns?
All right, and then for OA's update, what myself and then Lindsay, our representative, are really focusing on, and I think this whole school committee as well, is student voice. It can be kind of difficult as, especially at the high school level, where kids might be a little more disengaged from wanting to give feedback. So we are looking to partner with the Student Voice Union at OA to centralize student voice, because at the end of the day, we all have the same goal, and we want to just maybe help students feel more confident to give their opinion. So more student-on-student interactions rather than having to sign up to give your feedback to a teacher or to principals. And Lindsay is going to start that tomorrow in advisories. That way we can get a bigger sample of students rather than just students who want to give their feedback. And then after that, it's going to be kind of separate from advisories and more just student-to-student meetings to maximize the amount of feedback that we can get. And that's it.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the 2024-2025 MCAS and writing presentation, Dr. Cabral.
Thank you. So the first row has been reserved for you so you can see the presentation. We have 2 slideshows. The first is on the recent district MCAS results and related data. And it will highlight ways that the data can be used to influence instruction and support students. The second slideshow specifically focuses on the writing elements, which we've had a lot of questions about, specifically the use of the Wit and Wisdom curriculum and how the approach is designed to cultivate success in reading, writing, and communication. So we are going to have the first presentation on MCAS, followed by the writing presentation.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chrissy Pruitt. I'm the Assistant Superintendent. Tonight, we are pleased to share the 2024-2025 MCAS results for the Easton Public Schools and to place those results in a broader context of our instructional priorities, accountability measures, and ongoing improvement efforts. MCAS data is one important tool, though not the only one, that helps us understand how well our systems are supporting students. These results provide both affirmation of areas where instruction is strengthening and clarity around where we must continue to focus our efforts to better serve all learners. This presentation is about more than just test scores. We'll explain what the results tell us about how students are performing overall, where they're making progress, and where they may need more support. And we're also going to share how we use this information among with what teachers observe every day in classrooms to inform instructional decisions. Most importantly, we'll discuss how this data is informing our next steps to support deeper learning, build student confidence and independence, and keep students engaged in their learning. When I started this presentation 9 years ago, when I first started here in Easton, I presented alone, and I'm really excited to share today that 9 years later, not only are our principals here to join with me in this presentation, but also our instructional coaches and our director of instruction and EL. So I'm really excited. You won't hear from just me, I promise. So just to go over our agenda, first we're going to begin with a brief set of MCAS overview summary notes. Then we'll review district accountability information. Then we'll take a closer look at the 24-25 MCAS results, including trends across grade levels and subject areas. And from there, we'll shift our focus to the path forward, sharing the instructional practices and supports currently in place to help all students succeed. And finally, we'll conclude with a brief look at the writing in Easton Public Schools, an area of focus that connects directly to both student learning and assessment outcomes, and something that I know the community has been wondering about. So just in summary, this slide summarizes key performance trends, which we will get deeper into. You're going to see that we are highlighting higher achievement in ELA in grades 4, 6, and 7, and in math in grades 4, 6, 7, and 10. In science, results showed a slight increase in grade 5, a slight decrease in grade 8, and stable performance at grade 10. While Easton Middle School grade 8 students outperformed the state in the first year of the civics MCAS. These trends provide important context for understanding our district progress and for guiding the deeper analysis that follows. So just a little insight into our district accountability information and how the state actually looks at our accountability. So Massachusetts looks at several indicators together to understand how well a district is serving students overall. They look at achievement, which shows how well students are meeting grade level expectations on statewide assessments. They also look at student growth, which looks at how much progress students make from one year to the next compared to similar students across the state, regardless of where they start. High school completion reflects how successfully we're supporting students to graduate on time. English language proficiency measures how our multilingual learners are progressing toward academic English, and additional indicators, including factors which we'll discuss in more in depth, such as chronic absenteeism and participation in advanced coursework. Taken together, these measures provide a more complete picture of district performance overall. So this is district accountability information indicators. So this data shows how Easton compares to other Massachusetts districts and schools with similar grade spans. The state uses these indicators to compare schools serving the same grades, which allows for fair, like-to-like comparisons across the state. The numbers represent where a school or district ranks relative to peer schools in areas such as achievement, growth, graduation, English language development, all the indicators that I showed in the previous slide. For example here, Easton Middle School score indicates that EMS is outperforming approximately 80% of Massachusetts schools that serve students in grades 6 through 8. This helps us understand not just how students are performing, but how that performance compares to similar schools statewide. These comparisons highlight areas of strength and help us identify where continued focus and improvement will have the greatest impact. Chronic absenteeism is something that we look deeply at as well. Chronic absenteeism is defined as, it measures the percentage of students who miss 10% or more of a school year. And that's their number of days in membership. So for example, if a student starts school on the first day of school, they will have 180 days of membership. If they start partially further into the year, they'll have from that date forward that many dates of membership. So the data shows variation across schools reflecting differences in grade levels, student needs, and post-pandemic attendance patterns. While some schools have seen smaller year-to-year changes, the larger term trend since 2019 highlights that chronic absenteeism remains an area requiring continued attention across the district. And you will hear further from our principals about that. It's important to note that certain groups, when we dig deeper into this, particularly our multilingual learners, experience higher rates of chronic absenteeism. This helps us identify where targeted supports, family outreach, and system-level strategies are most needed. We use this data not as a point of judgment, but as a signal to strengthen attendance practices, reduce barriers to coming to school, and ensure students are constantly engaged in learning. So we're now going to get into the actual comparison of our MCAS results. I'm going to hand the presentation over to our principals, who will provide further data analysis for each content area. Mr. Cederbaum will start off.
Thank you, Mrs. Pruitt.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I am going to talk about our ELA data across the district for last year's MCAS. So this first slide is providing an overview of ELA achievement in grades 3 through 8 and grade 10, comparing Easton to the statewide performance. You can see that at grades 3 to 8, Easton is outperforming the state in percentage of students that are meeting expectations at 46% compared to the state's 34%. This indicates that our core ELA curriculum and our instructional practices in the classrooms are largely effective at the elementary levels. Easton also has half of the percentage of students that are not meeting expectations, with 10% compared to 20%, indicating that our intervention systems are helping to reduce the number of students that are falling into this category and falling significantly behind. At grade 10, Easton has one of our notable strengths, with 59% of students meeting expectation compared to the state's 41%, and only 5% are not meeting expectations at the grade 10 level compared to the 15% across the state. At the bottom, you'll notice the student growth percentage there, and again, when we look at EMS, the student growth percentage of 56, as Mrs. Pruitt explained previously, is above the state median and is showing a strong year-over-year academic growth at the middle school. RO at 44%, again, is showing a more moderate growth, but again, it's helping us to identify where we need to target our need in the area of early literacy and supports for our students. Our next slide is looking at giving us the opportunity to look more closely at equity and access as we're comparing different subgroups across our district in the different grade bands. So at 3 to 8, you'll notice that Easton's overall performance for students does exceed comparatively to the state. However, we are still seeing some of those persistent gaps in various subgroups. So again, students with disabilities or our multilingual learners are still coming up significantly with lower rates in the exceeding and meeting categories. At grade 10, the subgroup performance is generally stronger. You can see several of our subgroups are above that 60% mark, which is great, where overall they're at 69%. So again, it tells us that while the overall outcomes are improved by the high school level, that not all of our subgroups are still getting or benefiting from that targeted instruction. So we need to continue to look at how do we best serve the students in those different subgroup areas. Our next slide is looking at Easton's performance comparative to our DART districts or our neighboring towns, those districts that have the same comparative enrollment and other features. And so you'll notice on this slide that at grades 3 to 8, Easton is performing competitively among our peer communities, exceeding several of them and aligning closely with several others. There are a few outliers there, but for the most part, we are right in the path there. And at grade 10, Easton is standing out with 69% of students meeting or exceeding, placing us in one of the highest performing districts in our comparison group, and outperforming the state average and most neighboring districts in grade 10 for ELA. With that, we're going to turn it over to Mrs. Kavanaugh for math.
All right, everybody, I'm going to talk about our math achievement in MCAS, very similar to Principal Cedarbaum, and I won't repeat some of the contextual information he shared in order to not be too repetitive. So in math this past year, as you'll see on this first slide, when we look at Easton's comparison to the state, we typically kind of combine that meeting and exceeding. That's our goal for all kids. So this year, in terms of the elementary level, we had 58% of students in meeting and exceeding, whereas the state did, whereas the, we had 58%, whereas the state had 41. And then in math, we had 72% of our students meeting or exceeding expectations, whereas the state had 45. So again, always showing us areas of improvement, but I think we're really proud of these scores this year in our math programming. This, again, is the graph that then differentiates between different subgroups. And very similar to ELA, our students with disabilities and our students that are high needs are underperforming our overall student area scoring. So this is definitely, again, something that we're looking at in terms of our interventions, our MTSS, in terms of making sure that we're supporting all students to access the standards and access the curriculum at a level that allows them to meet the expectations of the MCAS. And then the final slide, as Principal Cedarbaum shared, this compares us to our DART and our neighboring districts. Overall, if you look at our neighboring towns, when it comes to grades 3 through 8, we're in the 4th highest of all of these districts that are listed, and in grade 10, there's only one district that's higher than us. So we are really performing at or above the level of the districts that both neighbor Easton and that the state of Massachusetts compares us to when looking at our scores. Next, I'll pass it off to Simmons.
Chris Ketchel, Principal, Richardson Olmsted School. I'm going to just go over the science data. I think Chrissy said something important, and when she introduced this, you used the word systems thinking. And districts really, when they're at the most effective, are working as a system, pre-K through 12. Everybody working together. And our standards that our kids are assessed on are written in a system. They build on each other. They're in a continuum from pre-K through 12. So if we're all working together and the system is humming along, student growth should be higher, I think, as they go through the grade. So it's nice to see higher scores in 10th grade because that starts in pre-K, right? And those standards build on each other. In thinking more in systems, in science, years ago, we really, in my opinion, went through a science revolution and completely flipped the way we taught science. Certainly different than the way I learned it in the 80s and early 90s. Whereas we really went to an inquiry-based system where kids were asking questions, learning the scientific method at a young age, and doing science, discovering versus reading about science and answering questions at the end of the chapter, and then following an experiment at the end. We have flipped that. At the elementary level, that starts in pre-K with no atom, and that continues through grade 5, and that's been years. I don't know how many years, but maybe 8?
About 7 or 8, yeah.
8 years of kids going from, getting the same system in science from pre-K through now 10. And we've also had really strong PD in no atom at the K-8 level. We've had a PD program called CHAMPS where teachers, which hardly ever gets to happen, unfortunately, teachers actually get to watch other teachers teach science. I get to go into like kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade rooms watching science 3rd, 4th, and 5th too, and I could see, and the teachers that participated could see, how these standards actually do gradually grow on one another from year to year to year. And so I think that systems thinking in our process and the PD we provided teachers has led to our strongest scores are in science compared to math and in reading. And I don't think that's just happenstance. I think there's reasons for that. I'll also show as I go through the data, even our subgroup scores, students with disabilities, that their highest achievement is in science versus reading and math. I think it has a lot to do with how we've embraced the science standards, provided professional development, and have a very good evidence research-based program that we're consistently using K through 5 in the middle school. I'm always into the why more than the data, so sorry. You didn't want me to do that, but I think that's really important.
Yes, you do.
Okay. So you can see, strong results in meeting. 57% of our kids 5 and 8 are meeting or exceeding. 10% are exceeding. Very few kids are not meeting in science. Look at the 10th grade not meeting. I mean, compared to the state, that's a huge discrepancy. I think the state is really struggling in teaching science to kids, and I think we're not as much because of our systems thinking here. And our subgroups, like I mentioned, if you compare science to math to ELA in the subgroups, our most vulnerable kids, our students with disabilities, 21% of them in 5 and 8 met. That's the highest percentage in that group compared to the other subjects. I know in the lower grades we tend to include students with disabilities in science instruction a lot, which I'm a huge advocate of. And I think we're, obviously giving those kids the tools, like Kelly had mentioned, to access those standards successfully. Compared to other districts, you can see grade 5 and 8 Easton, we are right up there in achievement. I think we're like 3rd in our dark group in grades 5 and 8 in science, and very close to the top. So positive results there. In grade 10, likewise, near the top compared to our districts. Okay, thank you for listening. I'll stop talking.
Don't worry, you'll hear him again. I need your slide.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Let's just talk about civics.
I've had a few of these MCAS presentations. I tend to run a little bit long, so I think this year they gave me civics on purpose because there's no data to compare it to. So In civics, this was the first year that we had the civics exam. You know, and we're certainly going to use this first year as baseline data for us. It's very different, the style of the civics exam than what we're used to. We're comparing it to, say, ELA or math. It's less about content recall. It's more about reasoning, interpretation, and the student's ability to write out and clearly explain what they're talking about. So it's certainly useful data for us moving forward. As you can see on this slide, you know, our exceeding expectations was at 5%, our meeting expectations at 42. The reason why those always get combined together, and they'll say, well, you know, 47% meeting and exceeding expectations. The reason for that is because ultimately, every single year, no matter what your scores are, the bar is going to get raised. And ultimately, as that bar gets raised each year, what you're trying to get to is every single student is meeting or exceeding expectations. And so this first year of data will certainly help us see where we want to get to. We're higher than state averages, but if you've heard me say this before, you know, I anticipate we're going to be higher than state averages. In some cases, we want to be at least 10% over state average. So that's something that we'll look at as we move forward. There we go. Okay. As you take a look at this, this is our subgroup data for meeting and exceeding expectations. So the state is right here, obviously. Our civics exam, all students is right here, and then the individual subgroups. The individual subgroups are everything from student with disabilities. It's our white student population, our Hispanic student population, black student population. It's our high needs population, which is not just special education students, but it's also economically challenged students, and our multi-language learner students are in that category. So as you can see, you know, it's fairly self-explanatory as the subgroups break out. There's nothing really to compare that to until next year's scores come in. So like I said, this is baseline data that we'll use moving forward to help inform our instruction and prepare our students as best we can.
If I can just chime in, one thing to point out about the subgroups is that you'll see, on other slides, you'll see there might be an additional subgroup in there that may not be in other slides. If we have a grade level that doesn't have enough above 10 students that in that subgroup, we won't report it because it's too identifiable. So that subgroup will not be reported.
As you take a look here, this is the comparison, the Dardanelles comparison, or schools that are like us, also neighboring schools. So you can see, you know, as you see the orange bar here, we're pretty much middle of the pack. I mean, it's the first time through. We weren't involved in the pilot or anything like that. So as our students adjust to the new style of test, and as our teachers realize what the expectations are as they release questions from the past civics exam and things like that, that will begin to change. But so the outcome in terms of where we're at compared to the other towns is not necessarily unexpected for the first year, but it will certainly help us with curriculum alignment moving forward, pacing, and helping the students just become more familiar with what is a new style of assessment for them. So now we can identify our strengths, our challenges moving forward, and begin to close those gaps moving forward. But like I said, this is a great, you know, it's great data for a baseline to give us something to look forward to, something to plan for, and something to try to improve as we roll into the next civics exam. Okay.
So we're just going to go through each school and what actually is being done as we move forward this year and the years to come. We always have the school improvement plans, and this is kind of an opportunity to share with you sort of the progress of how we're doing in relation to the school improvement plans, but also looking at that in comparison to the data. So we'll start off with Blaine James.
So at Blaine James, pre-K to 2, we are laying that groundwork. Again, as Chris and Mrs. Pruitt talked about, we are sowing those seeds so that when they get to Mrs. Kavanaugh in the high school, we can see that garden growing and all of that hard work that's put in from pre-K all the way up through grade 12. So at our level, we are doing universal screeners and curriculum-based assessments 3 times a year, both in ELA and math. We're doing DIBELS in ELA, we're doing STAR data in math, and again, we're then using and analyzing that data with the help of our instructional coaches, our learning specialists, and our classroom teachers to help identify those students that are in need of intervention. We have such a robust intervention program, and so by identifying them and getting them into that program, we're helping to increase their ability as a reader and a writer to progress onto RO when they get to grade 3. We talked about chronic absenteeism earlier. Again, we started out in 2022 with a 15.8% chronic absenteeism, and I'm happy to say that right now we're down to 12.8. Again, a little bit of progress doesn't mean we don't still have room to grow. So again, reaching out to families, sending out messages, having meetings, stressing the importance of school and attendance. Again, at an early age, I want all of our students to come to school, being happy, loving school, learning how to be a learner, becoming that ready student to continue that progress and growth all the way through high school. And it starts with us, so getting them to love school at an early age is important. And I think continuing to push that message to all of our families at Blanche Ames is a great way to help increase attendance and decrease that absenteeism that we're seeing. So, Mr. Getchell?
Before he comes up, I just want to share out about chronic absenteeism as well, that when we report, if you were to go on the DESE district profile and look at Easton's chronic absenteeism compared to, for the accountability measures, that measures grades 1 through 12. But when we look at chronic absenteeism at Blanche Ames, we do look at the attendance report, which is inclusive of PK and K. So while the accountability report for the district is only for grades 1 through 12, we want to compare apples to apples, so we really want to look at how all students are attending school. We also know that it's really important to get our families and our students in early, because if they are starting to create habits of being absent at young ages, we know that our achievement increases more specifically when our students are here at school.
So looking at the data at RO, both MCAS and all of our other data that we use, one trend that we've noticed is when kids have to leave the multiple choice world and read on their own and write on their own, that stamina it takes and that sustained attention it takes to do that, that's where our kids are struggling a little bit. So we are focused as a faculty on finding ways to increase opportunities for students to read independently, write independently. You know, you can't just give a third grader a question in a book and say, read and answer that question, go for it. They need teaching, and they're getting really good teaching. But after they're taught those strategies, trying to find ways for students to apply those strategies on their own and write more on their own, and have to go back and revise their writing on their own. Sometimes, you know, when we give our kids these assessments that we measure their growth on, they're on their own, and they have to have more experience working on their own, I think, outside of assessment time to be able to have the stamina necessary to do that. So we're working on that, and I know our coaches are going to talk about how we're doing that with the writing, because that is, our data does show that that is that writing that our kids are struggling more with at the elementary level, at our level. So that's been a focus of ours. We've even woven that into our school theme this year of WAR, respect, ownership, and resilience, teaching kids what it means to own your learning, own your behavior, own your materials. You know, look here instead of looking there all the time, and trying to make, you know, change within yourself that you can control. So we're talking a lot about ownership at RO, respect obviously of our staff, our other kids themselves, our school, and that resilience, being able to fail, which is such a critical part of learning. It's not bad, it's not wrong, but you learn best through failure. And our kids need to experience failure without breaking down and crying. They need to be able to, and the only way they do that is by having the experience of failing and knowing that they just learn from that and keep going. So really trying to teach that resilience is a big part of what we're trying to do based on what the data is showing us. So, thank you. I think we go into a loop, right?
There are a lot of bullet points on here, and I know the font is really small. I'm not going to touch base on all of these. These are some of the things that we're doing. It's not even all of the things that we're doing sort of at the middle school level. You know, initially what we'll do is we'll take a look at the data when the information is released. We'll go through the curriculum analysis. We'll go through the teacher analysis and how their students are doing. We go through the individual scores of all the students. We share those to the teachers. It should be highlighted that we have Jeannie Baxter, who's going to be presenting next, and Lindsay Wettbacker, who are our two instructional coaches, and they do an outstanding job with the data meetings, with syncing into the data, and really it's been amazing to have them, and it shows in some of the changes and increases that we have in our scores, particularly the ELA scores and our writing scores. So I didn't want to go by and gloss over that without giving credit where credit is due. We obviously try to look at we try to look at the curriculum, where we're failing, where we may be struggling, where we're not. 10 points higher than state average in the individual strands. We also try to incorporate the release practice exams and questions that we have, so kids become familiar with the style of the question, teachers become familiar with what is being asked and how it's being scored. That's something that's important to us as well. We also have STAR assessment data, which has been touched on, which we use for progress monitoring. We use it in math and in ELA. Our intervention, and we have an intervention program which is thriving. We also have a remediation opportunity for students during focus periods, so they don't have to miss any actual class time or core class time, and they can get intervention and remediation outside of that. So that's worked really well for us. Also we do tier 2 intervention, which targets identified skill deficits and current grade level standards. And these are all things that we currently have going on. As Chris already sort of touched on, we're really trying to work on students' stamina in writing. That's something that's important to us. We've made some changes, and that has shown over the last cycle that we're improving in that area, particularly in 7th grade, which was an area that we had targeted for a couple of years. But we're looking forward to this year as well, as we continue to get used to wit and wisdom and some of what we're asking for the kids. We think that will show as well as we move forward on the MCAS exam. Thank you.
All right, and then finally, all of our aims. This slide is meant to be a reference for you. I'm not going to read it out loud to you, but I mean, ultimately, I need to give tons of credit to Maria Nunziato, Kristen Morani, and Amy McGurk, our department heads who work with their team in order to look at test analysis, look where our kids are struggling and where our strengths are, and then work with the teachers in order to make adjustments to their instructional practices and their curriculum that include the same things that the other principals shared. MCAS practice test questions, a lot of independent writing skills, and that stamina is still something we're working on at the high school level. In addition to that, we have started the STAR testing last year, so we're starting to gather some longitudinal data on how students are performing on those assessments and using that to help us tailor instruction and provide interventions and support services to students who are struggling. And then finally, there's another thing I wanted to mention. Oh, I just want to add that the PLC time that we've added to our schedule has been an essential piece of our work in terms of making sure all kids are able to access the curriculum as well as our flexible learning time, and we really do utilize those times in order to support students in meeting the standards. So shout out to all the teachers and the staff who work in these subject areas, because I know that they go above and beyond to look at this data and make sure that we're making adjustments to support our kids.
I also want to point out that we are also utilizing platform called Open Architect that was provided to us through a grant through DESE that actually is a data housing platform that incorporates or actually houses all of our data. And so teachers from year to year will have immediate access to students' academic data from prior years as well as their intervention data. So that's going to be a huge resource for us. And our teachers are actively using it. They're putting in our interventions that their students are participating in, and that's been a huge help. So before we move on to writing and EPS, I just want to pause here and see if you have any questions that we can answer for you.
Committee members, you have questions? Questions?
I do have a few questions, and some were answered along the way, so thank you for that. Do we have any baselines around the subgroups that you identified and how they compare to other districts in the state?
Yes, I can create those slides and share those with you for sure.
Okay, I was mostly, I want to create work.
Okay.
So just more of a curiosity on any outliers, if there's anything that's standing out that we're taking action on in terms of how our subgroups are comparing to others. I also just want to validate something I think I heard, which is the subgroups are not mutually exclusive, so some of them were aggregations of each other in different ways of representing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Another question I had, so on the chronic absenteeism, do we have any exclusions from that? So students who are on medical leave,
There are no exclusions for chronic absenteeism. So if there is somebody, like you had just provided that example of having a medical absence or something, or even an excused absence, well, that is an excused absence. It is still counted as a part of the chronic absenteeism rate.
and are we seeing, based on any data we might have in terms of what they call an in-report, any patterns that are driving the absenteeism? Is it typically medical issues, family struggles, families taking vacation and not prioritizing school, anything that we know are sort of patterns or reasons for it?
That is a data point that we need to do better at collecting, because I know that it does vary between schools. So for example, anecdotal data, when I talked to Mr. Cedarbaum about chronic absenteeism at Blanche James, it is very different than chronic absenteeism at Oliver Ames High School, for example. We do see more vacations at the elementary level than we will see at the high school level, but I do think it's really about also sharing with, having more communication with families about absences and offer supports if children are having trouble coming to school.
For some of our subgroups, obviously the goal is that we get them to meeting expectations. Year over year, are we seeing progress in some of the subgroups that we know might need more attentiveness, such as high needs groups or students with disabilities? Are we seeing the progress that we're looking to see? Because we know that will always be a group that will need extra support to get there. Are we feeling like we're making progress there?
So I would love to do a deeper dive with you on, for example, our students with disability, because in those instances, we really narrow in and look at our student growth rates.
Right.
Because if you get a score between 40 and 60 of student growth rate, that is your typical growth. We are always looking for a higher growth rate of 60 or higher, because that's when we start closing the achievement gap. So when we do a deeper dive at the school level with our data meetings 3 times a year, we really do narrow in at the student growth rate. And I think our coaches are going to talk a little bit more about, not about the student growth. They talk to me about it in when they share the data meetings, but I know that they could share more about that. But it is definitely something that we narrow in more, and I'd be happy to work with Director Davidson, on creating more information. Specifically, our students with disabilities has been our targeted group for years, and I think it might be good. We never want to say, oh, but we're at a higher percentage rate than the state, because still our students with disabilities are struggling. However, I think looking at their growth rate and to see how we're closing that achievement gap would be really important data for you to see.
That's what I was trying to hit on. I could not remember the term that we've used in the past, but it's that, are we making progress? Are we getting that growth rate?
Yes.
Knowing that that'll be a group that can support. One last question I had, so Mr. Getchell did a fantastic job of calling out the benefit of the CHAMPS program and the way in which that has helped. Is that a program that is spanning, I know he mentioned specific to the science program? Are we using that in other areas? Is there anything we can do to help support the use of a program like that so that we can create strong opportunity across the district?
So as we shifted over, I'd love for Ann to come up and talk about that, but as we have shifted over to our instructional coaching model, we are incorporating a lot of those elements into our instructional coaching cycles. And do you want to share?
No, I think the CHAMPS model is definitely the model we should be striving for, and what we've been trying to focus on is how can we recreate that in-house without it being, we are paying no admin for that.
Got
it. So just living through that model for a couple of years and seeing the success of it, it really is something that I hope we can recreate in other content areas.
Awesome, thank you.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
For Blanche Ames, the universal screenings and curriculum-based measures that are being administered 3 times a year, this is a new program, relatively new?
No, we have, I'm sorry?
Sorry.
Yeah, we have administered the CBMs for years.
Okay.
The math assessment is new. So having the math screener 3 times a year is new data for us at the K-2 level. We have always had, for the 9 years that I've been here, the math data for 3 through 8.
And you found that to be helpful and?
Yes. Oh, it's been very helpful, especially having it at the K-2 level this year. And now we're having it at the high school as well. So again, having repeated years of using the same screening process, teachers can go in and see how their students have scored from year to year.
Okay.
And so that's also another benefit. Is they can look at progress over time, but we can look at student growth over time as well.
And then at RO, the whole child review, how is that going?
So the whole child review is a system that we have put in place this year. Each school is utilizing that as an opportunity to get to know their students better at each grade, where we have eyes on at a particular grade level, we have eyes on every student. And at Blanche Ames, grade 2, we're looking at grade 2, and did that start? Not yet, we're in the process of doing that. And Richardson Olmsted?
We've done the whole child review for every one of our 271 fourth graders.
Wow.
Those are the ones.
And then at EMS?
Ours is grade 6.
Grade 6, and then grade 9 at OA.
And are you seeing the benefits of that you thought you would see?
We are still in the process of getting all the information, but we are already seeing benefits from the analysis that we've done already, but we are still in the process of getting more of that. And then we are also going to be meeting at the end of the year as a group to talk about how did the system go, what can we do, what changes need to be made, and also think about how does that flow into because we're aligning that also with our student support team, so in our referral process.
Okay.
I'll follow up on that a little bit. Going through the process of whole child review in terms of benefits, we just went through it, right? I don't think the benefit, maybe slightly to the classroom teacher, but more so to the team around the classroom teacher that may not know all the students.
Okay.
So our coaches attended, our social emotional learning professionals attended, myself, the administrators. So we're here, the whole team is hearing about every kid holistically. And I think that helps the classroom teacher feel like they have a team they can go to for support, and it's not all on them for every kid. So it was long, and but I do think the benefit of the team approach for every child was worth it.
Thank you. And I really appreciate throughout the grade levels the focus on increasing writing stamina.
Yes.
I feel like it's so incredibly important for kids for whatever they go into, and I'm really glad that that's still a strong focus, so thank you.
And it's not just writing stamina, but it's also just independent work.
Yeah.
Because that is definitely an increased need that we are seeing.
And I just need to give Mr. Carroll a shout out because I've been listening to your presentations for many, many years. And you've always super focused on the data and you come up with these plans and how you're going to make the data work for you and help your kids. And I just want to thank you for all your work on that.
It's like Belichick level notes over here.
Yeah.
It's time to cut off sleeves. I have one more question. I don't know if I want to step on. Trying to figure out the best way to frame it, but related to the stamina and the independent work. I have had kids in the district for, I don't know, 15 plus years now, more, 20. Scary. There's obviously been a massive shift in students and their exposure to information that comes very immediately, right? They're on stages, they're on devices, I can only imagine how difficult it is at times, especially coming back after, say, 2 snow days or what have you, to get them sort of refocused and on task no matter what the grade level. And so your call out sort of on a focus on stamina and writing and independent work, I am assuming, and maybe that's a bad assumption to make, but that is getting harder with the increased use of online devices and the brevity with which some of that content comes out, so they're used to short videos and what have you. You're nodding, so I think I'm down a reasonable path.
Yes.
I guess the question or comment I have is there a way to bring the families further into that partnership and help educate and remind families of the things that they can do? And I know we send out messages as a whole society, right, at times that turn off devices or 30 minutes or what have you. But are there ways that as a district we can support practicing those behaviors at home as well, and or rewarding them like bingo cards for family game nights or reading time or anything that will help create that independence and or stamina in other ways, that so that when they're in the classroom they have been working on that muscle as well? Because I just think about how families can partner more effectively with the district on these things, and sometimes need to be reminded and equipped with tools too.
Yeah.
In that process.
Yeah, I do know that this year our 2 elementary schools are incorporating math and literacy nights.
Yes.
And that has been a great opportunity for our staff to share with families other options for families to do rather than having their child on devices all the time. One of the things that came out of the pandemic was all of these apps, right? And how, you know, we can put our kids on IXL or on another app to try and while one of the many things I appreciate so much about especially our elementary teachers is how they want to remove those devices from our students so that there is more face time. And I think that is definitely something that we need to talk more about with families. I know that our teachers do regularly. We had a professional development not this past PD, but the PD before that in October, where we had a professional talk about the change in attention span of students. It went from something like 10 minutes to now it's like 3 minutes, something like that. We are seeing that in our kindergarten classrooms. I'm looking at one of our amazing kindergarten teachers sitting right behind you, who probably could tell you the same thing, that we are definitely seeing that shift, and it is something that we are trying to address. And it's something in education as a whole that really needs to be addressed in how we are structuring our lessons, our ability to, the way that we're structuring the day. And we're going through that process right now, looking at our units, and Ann Weintraub is leading the revision of our units of study, and with our ELA especially. As she gets into that work with our elementary teachers, we're going to be looking and seeing how we can make those adaptations to the Wit and Wisdom program so that our needs are being met, the students' needs are being met.
I appreciate that. I do think it's, I see it in just my own kid, right? And having a young first grader versus first graders I had before. And the shifts in that, and I thought the point on kids not being used to failure was incredibly powerful. Because to your point on the apps, even on an IXL or something, I was like, fine, I'll go to the next thing. So when I fail, I'm just gonna move to the next app or the next question or do the other thing, as opposed to I have to stick it out. And when you see a piece of paper, you had to stick, like I can visually remember a kid having to be like, I have to actually finish this problem to go to the next problem on a piece of paper, where in an app you could just scroll to the next thing. So it's such a great point that I just wonder how we can help with that more, and help families with that more. Thank you.
Any other questions before we move on? Jim?
Sure. Mr. Carroll kind of made me think about this, but the comment was said something about we expect Easton as a district to perform better than the state. Do districts generally set goals like that we want to be X% better than the state average or something, or maybe even in the subgroups we want to improve by X percentage?
Yes, I've always done that. I know that that is something that when we set goals, academic goals, we will be focusing on the growth percentage. So when we create SMART goals, when our teachers create SMART goals for their evaluation, they have to be measurable. And by measurability, they put in a percentage of what the student growth percentile could be. Smarty, yes.
Colleen?
So I want to thank all of you for your effort in putting this presentation together. It was really informative. I did have a question about the 3 through 8 MCAS scores. So just kind of looking at it, like the partially meeting expectations was roughly 35 to 37%, depending on the content area. So I was wondering, because grades 3 through 8 is a pretty broad span, is there a particular, school or cohort or grade that's like a particular area of focus, or did you see that similar trend of roughly a third of the kids only partially meeting expectations consistently across all of the grades?
No, we found it in the first slide. It highlights in Easton, the ELA results showed higher achievement in particular grades. Mm-hmm. So we do have some grades that had lower achievement. I will tell you though, it's to point them out year to year, I don't find it very helpful because it changes all the time. Right. Some years, third grade might do really well. Some years they might not. We haven't had a consistent year where, or a consistent set of years where a particular grade level hasn't done well. What I will point out is that we do see this trend of higher achievement as the grades go on, right? Which is what you want to see. So when you get to 10th grade, you see a higher percentage rate of meeting or exceeding expectations. That's always what we want to see. So when we look at our data, we are constantly, we do tend to also really focus in on that the intervention. We have extremely targeted intervention as the years progress. We have extremely targeted intervention all the way through, but our intervention program and our intervention system is getting stronger and stronger as well because of the amazing professionals sitting behind you, as well as their colleagues, their math colleagues as well.
Because my second question was about your the benchmarks, the benchmark assessments that we do 3 times a year. So I was just curious if the middle, I'm sure that mid-year assessments are kind of happening now or just happened, if the various schools were pleased with the result, the growth that they're seeing from beginning of the year to now, or even now versus this time last year in some of those assessments.
I'll turn that over to them. They're just having data meetings now.
Okay. What we're seeing is very positive, and the growth is most impressive.
Yes.
Yeah. And then lastly, I'm really glad that you look at pre-K and K attendance, because even though the state doesn't come down on you for that at this point, like good habits start early, and lots of times folks don't realize that it counts or it matters, or they think in all the best of intentions, if my child has like the sniffles, they should stay home because 5 years ago you had sniffles, you were supposed to stay home. So I think it's just really great to get folks in now to make sure they understand the gravity of and importance of good school attendance. Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else before we move on?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So just really quickly, I'd love to learn more about the whole child review. Mm-hmm. So if there's anything that you can share more, I would appreciate it. I'm most curious of once you review a whole child, what are you doing with that data? And for a child that is not any of the subgroups, but
there's decline or they're on the line, like where does that data go? And what interventions are put in place for that child?
Sure. So the whole child review is, we have been really, last year we focused with the organization, an academy called the S3 Academy, through the Department of Education. We focused on looking at the child, at the whole child. And I'm going like this because there are 4 quadrants of that child. There's the academic quadrant, the social emotional quadrant, the health quadrant, and the family quadrant. And we looked at what are the strengths and areas areas that they may need support of each quadrant for every child. So when they say that we looked at 4th grade, and every single student in 4th grade, they presented a student, they went through and discussed the strengths of each quadrant of that child and any areas in which they might need more support. Do they need resources to find activities outside of school? Do they need any sorts of resources that a family may need? We also have a bank of resources. So S3 helped us create a bank of resources that we can share with families. If it's not just an academic need, if there's a health need, we have these resources that we can provide families. We also look at how can a strength in one quadrant support an area of concern in another quadrant as well. And so those conversations happen. And when that data is gathered, then there's the updating that happens. So I know Chris wants to talk about it, so I'll just turn it
to. The
to
window, honestly, during whole child review. We don't think of kids in like pin labels or whatever. We look at every kid. That's the point. Every kid the same across the same continuum. And it's just really exactly what you just said. How can we build on the strengths to help areas of weakness? We all have strengths and weaknesses, every single person. So it's a way of like, creating some equity in how we look at all kids. And that was kind of the cool part.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, just bringing the other parts of our team into the fold when talking about kids.
Yeah, thank you. I guess what I'm trying to understand is when you gather this data and if the family doesn't, and you're developing all these resources for families, but if the family doesn't come forward that they perceive a need, are you reaching out to the family?
Oh, yes.
I don't hear that well.
No, nothing. Your phone was just, yes.
We're doing a whole flexible review.
Got all 4 quadrants.
Yeah, got all 4 quadrants.
Level of distraction.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes, welcome.
I really appreciate the presentation.
Yes.
And a lot of the questions I had were answered throughout.
All right, are you ready for writing?
I mean, all the questions I had were answered throughout. Sorry.
So it is my honor to turn this over to our Director of Curriculum and EL, Ann Weintraub, who will be introducing our coaches, our literacy coaches. Yeah.
We're gonna line up. All right, I'm gonna start. Good evening. Thank you for giving us the opportunity, the literacy instructional coaching team, the opportunity to share with you information about our writing instruction within the Wit and Wisdom program. I have the privilege to work very closely with these amazing women every day, and they work tirelessly day in and day out to support teachers who are supporting students. And tonight, these are our literacy coaches. So Cindy Olson works at VA, Karen Rogers at RO, and Jeannie Baxter at EMS. As referenced in our MCAS presentation, writing has been identified as an area in need of continued improvement. We have been focusing, God, I'm up there. I'm sorry.
I was wondering how I could get humor into this because it's not really funny, but that's fine. Continue improvement, and we have been focusing on writing over the years, and we continue to do so. And we understand that we need it to be an instructional priority, a focus for us. With our fairly recent implementation of a new ELA program, Wit and Wisdom, we hope that it would be beneficial to explain our instructional practices within Wit and Wisdom, but also how we use the MCAS data that we just shared with you to inform our instruction and to help us make instructional decisions about writing across all grade levels. Even though our K-2 students don't take the MCAS, we have data about writing, and we know, as we've stated, it's a systems thing. We are working with kids through their whole educational journey from pre-K through 12. So, Wit and Wisdom is a comprehensive literacy program supported by the science of reading. It ensures students develop critical reading and writing abilities while simultaneously acquiring knowledge about the world. Tonight we're going to focus on the writing component of the program. Students learn to write every day through Wit and Wisdom craft stages, which are repeated transferable stages that scaffold the writing process and students' skill building. The craft stages are examine, experiment, execute, and excel.
Hi everyone. So as you can see, there are multiple assessments in each of the Wit and Wisdom modules. These assessment data points help us to determine students' proficiency with ELA skills for reading, for writing, for speaking, and for listening. It also helps to evaluate the impact of our instruction and also allows us to make adjustments to curriculum based on all this data. Any of the assessments with an arrow are specific to writing, and any with a star are connected to writing in some way, some component. So whether it's preparing notes for a Socratic seminar, filling in a chart, identifying citations, so it's somehow connected. So these are the same assessments in all of the Wit and Wisdom modules. Obviously they get more difficult. And we're going to walk through some of the focus and question tasks tonight with you through the years, each of the grade levels. A focus and question task, affectionately called an FQT, serves as a formative assessment, and it's a way that we can assess students' proficiency with explicitly taught content and skills. Students have to analyze complex text, complex passages, and the tasks match the rigor of MCAS assessments.
So we wanted to let the students kind of do the talking because that's what we're all about. So we're going to show student work from grades 2, 4, 6, and 8 so that you can see the progression of the writing through the years. So this is a second grade focus question task. It is from module 1, so it is the first module that's taught in the year. So this is a sample from this fall. This is what students get as the directions for what they'll be doing. So in K-2, we're kind of building the blocks for the writing. We are the very beginning. We're trying to, by the end of second grade, we want them writing a well-developed paragraph, morphing into 2 well-developed paragraphs. So at the beginning, there's quite a lot of teacher modeling and scaffolding and student support, because the focus is really on the quality of the writing at our age and not so much the quantity of the writing. So in this task, students are asked to write an informative paragraph about how the weather impacts leaves in the fall. This is the organization piece. This is key because to be able to write well, you have to organize your thoughts. So if you visit a second grade classroom, actually K-2 classroom, you'll see a lot of discussion going on because the belief is that if I can't express it verbally, I can't put it down on paper. I need to kind of have my thoughts in my head, the vocabulary, the words that I want. Then after I've discussed it, I've developed my ideas, I can put it onto paper. And that's where the graphic organizer comes in. We have all of these ideas, now how do I organize it? Students in second grade are expected to write a topic sentence, give 3 pieces of evidence, at least 3, they can do more, that are directly related to the text and to the topic. And that is very difficult in the earlier grades, picking the evidence that really supports what my topic sentence was, and then a conclusion or a concluding sentence. So these are the expectations. We color code the pieces so that when students are writing, they know that this is my topic sentence. So when I show you, this is a typical second grade response. In green, we have the topic and the concluding sentence. The yellow, the first yellow is the first piece of evidence, blue is the second piece, and the yellow is the third piece of evidence. Students are given some of the language for the organization of writing. So for instance, in this task, they're asked to use the words first, then, and finally. So it is very structured to help them to be able to write that well-developed paragraph. So I think of this as sort of the foundation that we're building so that by the time they get up to high school, they're really able to write those well-developed essays.
I'm going to talk a little bit about 4th grade. So, as Cindy noted, structural organization is fundamental to developing cohesive paragraphs. Beyond the use of graphic organizers, students are also provided with explicit writing criteria. This color coding methodology enables students to systematically categorize their ideas, ensuring all essential components are present and well integrated. And you can see the introduction in pink, figure the focus statement, and again, going on with the evidence and the elaboration. So this, in grade 4, the curriculum shifts towards sophisticated analysis and structural depth. Students learn to frame topics thoughtfully, integrate supporting evidence, and articulate the relevance of their findings. This FQT illustrates the use of the color-coded system, which highlights the students' adherence to specific success criteria that was referenced in this previous slide. So this approach ensures that students are mastering the complex writing skills required for a successful transition eventually to middle school. As previously noticed, the FQT assesses a student's ability to provide evidence-based, open-ended responses, closely aligning with the rigor of MCAS writing prompts. The MCAS sample provided was produced by this student in the spring of 2025. A comparative analysis of these 2 work samples reveals significant and measurable growth and highlights the effectiveness of our ongoing writing supports, which is, I know you can't read it, but great improvement.
So this is the same student in 3rd grade and then in 4th grade, so you see the growth.
Yes.
So this is a 6th grade FQT in the fall. That was the original school committee meeting, sorry. And the task was, what hardships did people face in the Great Depression? We always joke, welcome to 6th grade, we're going to talk about the Great Depression. And I realize you can't read it. I'd be a terrible reading specialist if I thought you could. I'm sorry. But as you can see, at the middle school, we do expect to have like multi-paragraph, well-developed essays. I didn't include the models with you, but we do have some writing models similar to the younger grades. I think at Seek View we have to Seek and then Hit to Seek, which follows through to See clearly and each breaks down the kids. I can share those with you if you need them. So this is an example of proficient writing in the fall of 6th grade. And as you're looking at it, we say it's done independently, but independently is with the use of different resources that they have, previous completed work, Socratic seminar notes, anchor charts, discussions, things that they have done in class that contribute to this. And this is done over several days. When we look back, again, that same comparison. So this is a same student, SASID removed from 6 months prior. So this is when they were in 5th grade. Clearly, again, not being able to see it, but analyzing it on our own and having read it, you can see huge development just in the length and complexity, the evidence and elaboration that they're including now. Again, MCAS, on-demand writing, one sitting at best. So as you see, when we look at it, our big thing now is we know kids are capable of doing it, but how do we build that bridge? How do we get them to transfer that in their independent writing? And again, as Chris had said earlier, and as Luke has indicated, that call for independence and stamina for writing and across all content areas. So then again, we see for 8th grade, another exciting topic, a one-page letter from the point of view of Albert Kropp or Mueller from All Quiet on the Western Front, in which the soldier describes and reflects on his experiences fighting the front line in World War I. Again, you can't read it, I assure you. Just the development, the use of citations, evidence, and elaborating and connecting it, just a really nice job of proficient writing at 8th grade. And when we compare it, same student 6 months ago, spring of 7th grade, you can just see the growth that way. So we are spending a lot of time in all the grades during our department meetings, our PLC meetings, doing writing analysis protocol, looking at trends that we're seeing, positive or negative, and how are we pushing all kids. Now, I know we spend a lot of time tonight talking about interventions and targeting those kids that need it, but we also have kids the other end. How are we pushing them, making sure that they're continuing to develop as a writer? So these are just some examples, again, connecting it, that we are using this MCAS data. The teachers have access to all the released prompts each year. Last year they didn't release them, but every other year. Some ways that we are supporting in various ways at various levels. I don't have to read them to you, but just ways that we are all working together. Are there questions? Am I taking your line? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you have any questions, comments?
Any questions? Colleen? Kelly? Oh, go ahead, Colleen. So, that was amazing, by the way, like the growth from the end of 3rd grade to beginning, I mean, that's absolutely phenomenal. Do the teachers ever get the chance to, I'm guessing it's probably yes, but do they get to share those prompts, like pull those prompts with individual kids and say, this is what you did on ELA MCAS in 3rd grade, and this is what you literally just did in October of your 4th grade year? Like, that's incredible.
That's actually a really good point. So we have current, so teachers have access and can share with the students the previous year, but we haven't gone back to be able to say, here's what you did in 3rd grade, but I love that. I love that. And again, we just had that 1 year gap when they were adjusting MCAS and trying to calibrate the writing. They didn't release the essays for 2024, but that's a great thing to follow. A little portfolio going.
I just remembered that when a parent reached out to me concerned about writing, their child's writing on the MCAS, I wasn't identified. I said to Lauren, don't worry, you should see what they're actually producing in class. And I think that this was a perfect opportunity to show that. As Jeannie had stated, that they were sitting down and they had a short amount of time to write that. When you can see what they do and they have a couple days to do it, think about us when we write something. We write a long, narrative. We go back, we review it. We go back maybe the next day and review it again. That is more applicable, and what you're seeing the students produce now is way more applicable than what MCAS is asking them to do. In the beginning of our presentation, I said that MCAS is an important tool to look at, but it's only one tool. It's really important that we're looking at various tools. And what our teachers see in the classroom, what our students are actually doing, is such a more valuable tool than just that one assessment point.
Lauren, did you have something else?
Sort of. So this is really impressive, and like Colleen said, the progress is amazing. But my question is
So let's use like 6th grade for the 5th grade and 6th grade one. Sorry.
No,
Okay.
you're fine.
So the essay that they did in class, they had several days, they had their charts, they color coded. When the same student who made this progress goes the next year for their MCAS, it's one time, one sitting. So the progress isn't going to show as much because they're not going to have that tool. They're not going to have the teacher reminding them of their resources.
It might not be a match to what we're seeing in class with access to all the resources, but we should still see progress, especially where typically narrative writing was done third or fourth. And now the switch that it's all expository. So the type of writing, so the kids are used to that, having to pull evidence, having to elaborate on that and support their thesis or claim. I do think one of the biggest things that we see is that kids don't understand the prompt. And they, particularly in 5th grade, when we went through a lot, and it was such, kids wrote a summary. They read it, and it was, I'm gonna write a nice summary of the story, first, next, then, and getting them to really focus on breaking down the prompt and that, working on that.
And when the teachers are modeling it with them and doing it with them more in class, they internalize it more. So while you may not see it in the 5th grade, well, they have a year of instruction that hopefully the idea is that it becomes a little bit more habitual. So that when they are asked to apply it on the next year's assessment, it is a little bit more habitual for them and they're able to create more products.
Okay, thank you. You explained it a lot better than I could. I expressed it better.
Any other questions?
I had a related.
I'm good.
I had a related question to Lauren's, which was, I know a lot of the MCAS work is done on a computer now. Do the students have the ability to have a piece of paper and sort of make those notes? And I realize that you give them a structured framework, which I love. Anecdotally, my son told me the other day that his teacher keeps a hamburger in the classroom at all times. I thought that was really weird until I was like, okay. And then he explained that the bun was the topic and the conclusion, and he's 1st grade, and I was like, this makes so much sense. It didn't at first, it did once he explained it, but I thought, wow, you're in 1st grade telling me about a topic and conclusion. This, again, to my years of kids in the school, as you guys know them, you know all my kids. This is not something we were discussing in 1st grade 15 years ago, but it was a little amusing. But that concept of like, they know how to structure, right? And I know they might not get the form, but are they learning to kind of organize their thoughts on a paper or a side note on the MCAS before they write it out? Are they able to do that?
So kids get a blank piece of paper on MCAS, and one of the things, and I won't call it Suzanne, but but one of the things saying like, 7th and 8th grade starting, I think, to allow kids, like, they have that structure, like creating their own planner to be able to do that, because they're not, unless kids who are on an IEP or have certain accommodations are able to get a graphic organizer. We are working with MCAS to see if all kids can have access to organizers or writing models so that they're able to, it's good for all.
Right.
But kids are able, so getting them that idea that you have to have evidence of organization, you have to have some planning prior to it. So yes, they do have, there is an expectation that they will plan before they jump into any cold write. Do they do it on MCAS?
TBD.
Exactly.
It's fantastic showing the teaching of skills and just the build of skills and the framework, and then the concept of that they could think to organize it, or they might be reminded like there's a blank paper. You can follow the same things we taught you, because it carries through first in literally adulthood. I wish adults had that level of organizer some days. So I appreciate you all. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The graphic organizer that we use, it's the same graphic organizer moving up, maybe not the hamburger, but now they've added elaboration, or they've added another piece. By the time it gets up to middle school, they've added more pieces. So it's the same bones, but we're just fleshing it out more. So by the time they get up to middle school, after they've had written wisdom for a while, it should be automatic, like right in their heads.
And it's that repeated exposure and practice, which leads to that gradual release. And you know, us being new to this curriculum, which is amazing, we're gonna see that growth all the time.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you so much. That was really great.
I just want to thank our coaches and our principals and Anne, of course, for doing this presentation, creating this presentation. I just think it's so important that you see the voices of those that are really working most intimately with our teachers and the work that they're doing. So, thank you. Thank you so much.
It's very powerful to hear it from you. I also felt taught, by the way, like you educated me on all the way through. So I appreciate that. I'm trying to learn as I go. It's like an art song for us to sing. There's Monopoly money here, if anyone is missing $500 a month. Yeah.
Everybody ready? Okay. Thank you again. Next item on the agenda, a vote to accept donation from All Town Fresh. Dr. Cabral.
Thank you. So as a result of fundraisers held this fall, Mr. Cedarbaum will talk about a donation from All Town Fresh, and a vote will be held hopefully to accept their donation to Blanche James.
So we are excited and grateful for our continued partnership with the All Town Fresh here in Easton. We are their chosen school. Every All Town Fresh up and down the eastern seaboard is partnered with one school in their community. And so this year, our first event was an educator give back program in September. So all educators, staff, paraprofessionals, everybody who works in a school was eligible for a free cup of coffee every day in the month of September. And then every cup of coffee sold at our local All Town Fresh, they donated the proceeds of that back to us at the school. So that initiative garnered us $1,000. So that was our first donation. We were also excited to welcome the All Town Fresh coffee truck back to campus at the end of September, and all of our teachers were able to benefit from some great free coffee from All Town at the end of September. Our second event was a car wash weekend. We do one in the fall and one in the spring. So the first weekend in October, October 3rd and 4th, anybody who went through the car wash at All Town Fresh, again, a certain number of proceeds are donated right back to us at Blanche James. And so that fundraiser got us $620. So I am asking you for acceptance of $1,620, which will go into our revolving account. We are hoping to use some of those funds for our upcoming literacy night that Mrs. Pruitt spoke about. In addition to all of the excellent activities, games, and fun things we have planned for our families that evening on Monday, March 2nd. We are ending the evening with a storytelling performance by Big Joe. So we're going to use some of those funds to have him come to Blanche James and wrap up our literacy night for the year, which will be great. And then we are planning on using some more of the funds once all of this wonderful white stuff melts to restock all of our recess equipment and get the kids some stuff to play with and use out at recess once the weather gets better. So.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Awesome. Awesome.
That's great.
Okay. So I will take a motion to accept with gratitude the donation of $1,620 from All Town Fresh to Blanche James.
So moved, Marcia.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Cedarbaum.
Thank you.
Okay, next, vote to accept Connected and Online Program Grant. Dr. Cabral.
So our Director of IT, Livia Remus, has been working very diligently to secure some grants. One of the things that we know we are lacking are the Chromebooks. It's one of our one of the items that we find that our teachers and students are really missing with the lack of one-to-one initiative. And so instead of giving you the details, I'd really like Director Ramus to tell you the details of what she was able to secure for the district through this grant. Ms. Ramus?
Thank you, Dr. Cabral. So this fiscal year, a new grant program called the Connected and Online Program was launched by the Massachusetts Broadband Institute, the Mass Tech Collaborative, and the Healy Driscoll Administration. It was a $23 million statewide initiative open to both municipalities and school districts. The purpose of the grant is to close the digital device gap in Massachusetts by providing hardware to organizations that serve the public. Grants that allow us to actually purchase or obtain Chromebooks are very hard to come by. So it was very exciting to be able to even apply for this grant. And we're excited to announce that we have been chosen as an award recipient. The award consists of 250 Chromebooks, which we will be able to add to our fleet to assist in increasing access K-12 for our students, for our teachers. We're very grateful to MBI and the Mass Tech Collaborative for selecting us, and I hope that you will accept this grant award for Easton Public Schools.
Now there's a contract that goes along with this.
Yes.
Are there any stipulations, any requirements that we should know about?
The requirements are essentially that we are allowing access to devices, that we are putting them out into distribution, and making them readily available. Those are the biggest stipulations. We can't sit on the devices, which obviously we don't want to do. We want to get them out as quickly as possible. Obviously, 250 devices will take a little while to unbox and set up, but our hope is to have them out shortly and added to what we have available to everyone.
Is there a time period that we get to keep these? Is it indefinite?
It's indefinite. We are allowed to keep them until they are no longer of use, and essentially they become a permanent part of our fleet moving forward. We will do with them what we do with all our other devices, repair as needed, take pieces, hopefully long way down the road, years from now, if we need to repair other devices, and eventually recycle anything that is no longer functional and useful.
Yeah, so
Go ahead, Lauren.
I assume that you, well, congratulations first of all, but
Thank you.
I assume that you have an idea of students or a cohort of students that will be receiving the new Chromebooks.
So 250 is basically enough for a grade level. Our hope is that we would be able to still purchase devices for our incoming 9th graders for next year. We would want to keep that one-to-one program going at the high school, and we would actually take these devices and be able to deploy them into additional carts and tubs in our schools that are not one-to-one, so that we have more available for teachers to share and to utilize during their lessons, for students to have access to. It will be a huge help, especially when we're thinking about coming up on testing time. MCAS presentation, very timely. We always need to have enough devices on hand for all our students to be able to not just access lessons, but also test, take all these assessments that give us so much great information.
So remind me, do we have a opt-out ability for families that have their own devices already and they want to keep their own devices, that they don't want the school-issued one, so the school-issued one can go to other families that need it and don't have their own?
For 9th grade, you mean?
Any grade.
So we only are assigning one-to-one for our high school students.
Okay.
For any other grade level, they do not need to use the assigned devices that are in our carts and our tubs. They can bring in their own devices. We see that happening a lot at the middle school, where they obviously are utilizing technology quite frequently. It's not a requirement, except when it comes to standardized testing like MCAS. You usually must utilize their lockdown browsers. There's a lot of requirements that the way we can ensure that we are meeting those requirements for the state is we utilize our school issued devices. We loan them out to those students that opt to not have a school issued device during testing days, collect them back, and roll them back out into our available devices for everyone else.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions? Colleen, Kelly, Jim? Okay, great. Thank you so much for going for this and getting it. I mean, it's wonderful, so thank you.
Thank you.
So I will make a motion, or I will take a motion to accept with gratitude the Connected and Online Program Grant of 250 Chromebooks.
So moved.
Second?
Pursue second.
All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next item, discussion and vote to appoint members to the Superintendent Search Advisory Committee and review of timeline. Okay, this is me. So first I want to thank everyone who applied to serve on the advisory committee. We got a lot of responses and we really appreciate it. We'll be selecting 4 members of the EPS staff, 4 parents or caregivers, 2 building administrators. In addition, a student from Easton Middle School, a student from Oliver Ames High School, and I will serve on the committee. Human Resources Director DiNapoli will serve on the committee as a non-voting member. So I'm going to ask committee members to choose applicants in each category that have more applicants than positions, keeping in mind that our goal is to have representatives from each school if possible. Now, I understand this is awkward to do this in public, but because of the open meeting law, this is how we have to do it, unfortunately. So the students were chosen by their principals. So from EMS, Rebecca Porter will be on the committee, and from Oliver Ames, Abby Lantigua. I want to thank both students for volunteering for this. There were 2 spots for building administrators, and 2 building administrators applied, Mr. Cedarbaum, principal of Blanche Ames, and Mr. Getchell, principal of Richardson Olmsted, so thank you both. Okay, so 5 members of the staff have applied for 4 positions, and 21 parent caregivers have applied for 4 positions. So we're going to start. Okay, we'll start with the staff. Colleen, we'll start with you. If you could go down the line and choose 4 of the 5 staff members, please.
Jennifer Costa, Karen Rogers, Stephanie Sanpetrio, and Rita Pastori.
Great. Kelly?
Can you come back to me? Sorry.
Sure.
The spreadsheet is not working well on my iPad, so
I can give you.
This is what I needed to print out.
Hold on, I can give you.
Thank you. Oh, I just want to read the comments.
Oh, you want the comments?
I've got it. It's okay. Come back to me. And I'll
Lauren?
I will, Jennifer Costa, Karen Rogers, Rita Pastori, and Dina Lavelle.
Jeff?
Jennifer Costa, Karen Rogers, Rita Pastori, and Dina Lavelle.
You ready?
Yes. I had Stephanie Sanpietro, Jennifer Costa, Dina Lavelle, and Rita Pastori.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3. All right, so we have a tie between Stephanie Sanpietro and Dina Lavelle. So if we could just go through once again and vote. Either Stephanie or Dina. Colleen?
Stephanie.
Stephanie? Lauren?
Dina.
So for
I'm
what it's
asking you to
go again. Jim?
We're just gonna be splitting it. One of us changes up.
I will, so I'll.
I'm going. Jim?
I'm just making it fun.
Dina, I guess.
Two, and I'm gonna do Dina. So it's Jennifer Costa, Karen Rogers, Rita Pastori, and Dina LaValle will be serving.
So all of the stuff we picked are from Laura. I just wanted to note that. It was the
Yep.
one comment I was going to make because we only had one representative from VA.
Yep. Okay.
Everyone's good with that. Okay.
Yep.
I'm just, we didn't have a chance to discuss it in any way, shape, or form, so I'm just
Well,
making a note of
we
that.
have Mr. Cedarbaum. Okay, so parents, caregivers will probably have to do a couple of rounds of this. Because there's so many applicants, which is really wonderful. Colleen? So just go slow, because I have to find names I'm trying.
I spent a long time looking at this list. I wish we as a school committee would have picked 10 or 12 parents, and I understand we can only
The
have
backgrounds and experience is
Yes.
really unbelievable.
So I struggled with this a great deal. There's 12 or 14 people who I think would be phenomenal in this role. But after a lot of soul searching and reading those spreadsheets, these are the folks that I chose. Adrian Roberts,
Okay, hold on, what?
BA. I'm doing it in order.
Okay.
Of this sheet. Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
yeah, Adrian Roberts, Christy McDonough,
Hold on. Okay.
Nora Hassan Hadidi,
Yep.
and Matthew Matira.
Okay. Kelly, do you feel
Come back
comfortable
to
going
me.
in? Okay. Lauren?
So, okay. Crystal Mortis, Christy McDonough, Nora Hassan Hadidi, and Jennifer Smith.
Jim?
Crystal Mortis, Christy McDonough, actually Kristen Hobbs and Steve Parento.
Okay, say that again. Crystal
Kristen,
Mortis.
sorry. Crystal Mortis, Christy McDonough,
Yeah.
Kristen Hobbs, and Steve Parento.
Okay, Kelly, you ready?
Yes, sorry, I had to go back because I put people in wrong.
Sure.
I had Scott Turek, Christy McDonough. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. Christy McDonough, Brandy Chambers, and Nora Hassan Hadid.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 4, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1, 1. Okay. Yeah, did I vote? I didn't vote, okay. So I voted for Jennifer Smith, Nora Hassan Hadidi, Matthew Matira, and Amy Kirkcaldy. So we have 2 that got 4 votes, and that is Nora Hassan Hadidi and Christy McDonough. So those 2 will be on. So then we have, let's see, we have Matthew Matira, Jennifer Smith, and Crystal Mortis each got 2. Let me just make sure that's right. 1, 2 is Crystal. Crystal, apologize for taking so long.
I'm the one taking more time, sorry.
Matthew Matera, got 2. So. Laura's got 4. Okay, so we will be voting on, so we have 2 more spots open. Crystal Mortis, who is from RO, Jennifer Smith, RO and OA, and Matthew Matera, RO. So please vote.
Crystal's BA and RO.
Crystal's BA and RO.
Jackie, I'm sorry, can you repeat the options again?
So, 1, 2, 2, 2. Okay, so we have 3 people for 2 positions. Crystal Mortis, Jennifer Smith, and Matthew Matera. So please vote for 2 people. Colleen?
Jennifer Smith and Matthew Matera. Crystal Mortis and Jennifer Smith.
Lauren?
Crystal Mortis and Jennifer Smith.
Jim?
Matthew Matera and Jennifer Smith.
And I vote for Jennifer Smith and Matthew Matera. So Jennifer Smith. So it'll be Jennifer Smith and Matthew Matera. So our parents will be Christy McDonough, Nora Hassan Hadidi, Jennifer Smith, and Matthew Matera.
Congratulations.
So, it wasn't quite as confusing as I thought it was going to be, but I am going to make a motion to appoint to the, I can't even remember the name of the committee at this point. I'm going to make a motion to appoint the following people to the Superintendent Advisory Committee. Rebecca Porter, Abby Lantigua, Sam Cedarbaum, Chris Getchell, Jackie Wiseman, Jennifer Costa, Karen Rogers, Rita Pastore, Dina LaValle, Christy McDonough, Jennifer Smith, Nora Hassan Hadidi, Matthew Matera, and Christina DiNapoli. Yes? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you everyone for your patience and everyone who applied. Seriously, if you're not on this committee, please sign up for something else because amazing, amazing people have put in their application. Amazing. Yes. We sent out a letter, I think, to everyone. So, okay. So that is that. Okay, discussion and vote on the establishment of the school committee budget subcommittee and possible vote. So we're going to establish the school committee budget subcommittee, which is different than the town budget subcommittee. Included in your packet is the description and the makeup of the committee. Jim, thank you very much for all your work on this. His draft was reviewed by Dr. Cabral, Mrs. Pruitt, and Director Speck. So I first want to ask everyone, do you have any questions or comments about the description of the committee, the makeup, anything like that? No.
I did, sorry.
Go ahead.
Just pulling
Go
it
ahead.
up so I can go through the question. One of the things that I did not see explicitly called out on here, and I make this caveat all the time, I'm a data person, it's my career, it is what it is that I did not see noted on here defining and drafting some of the reporting that we would see and get and that would be brought to the school committee. I think it could be implied in some of this, but I do think that it would be important for the subcommittee to work with the Director of Finance to increase the reporting and the visibility that we have in certain areas. I know that's been, quite frankly, a gap that we talked about during the interview process. So hopefully I'm not putting you on the spot with that, but we had talked about it a bit, just increasing visibility and data and the reporting we get to get access to information and better insights. So Was that intended to be part of the subcommittee? Was that not included in the subcommittee because that's something you're taking on as part of your role and this committee would just review that data? Any thoughts the two of you had on that?
My thought around the subcommittee was to bring my reports to the subcommittee first, before every school committee meeting, to make sure it meets needs, and if any questions came up, it could have those ready and prepared for the school committee at that time. So I mean, if we want to put that into some kind of bylaws of the committee, that would be fine with me.
So, I mean, the committee is going to be, I think, fluid enough that once whoever are the committee members that get in there, they will establish what they want the committee to look at, what they want to do, what the procedures are, and how often they're going to meet, and how often they're going to report to the school committee. I mean, this is new. So it's really up to the subcommittee to come up with how they think it's going to be best to function, to be transparent, and to keep everyone informed.
I will say I do think the purpose of the document is to be broad and just set what the mission statement and high level responsibilities of the budget subcommittee are. But it doesn't mean we couldn't look at amending this to include.
Yeah, and
it's
you
just
could have
not trying to get too
different
specific.
weeks, like this week we're looking at the data for this week we're gonna look at what the town budget subcommittee talked about. You know, you can do whatever you want, it's a new committee.
I think, for what it's worth, I think we talked about it with Mr. Spagna, Dr. Cabral, and Mrs. Pruitt about a budget book that maybe sets some foundational knowledge of how the school budget get developed, what are the inputs, what are the outputs, things like that just wouldn't really fit in this type of document. But to Jackie's point, it doesn't mean we can't. We have a lot of bandwidth, I guess, to come up with those types of ideas.
Agreed and understood. However, when I went through the document and things were noted around sort of ongoing, so language here has things like ongoing monitoring, review periodic budget updates, including variances, emerging pressures, flag significant deviations. I just notably didn't see reviewing reporting or revising reporting or giving input on reporting, and so I wanted to make sure we were transparently aligning on the fact that these would be written, reported up information as opposed to verbal. That it might be implied in here. I understand the committee has lots of ability to carve that out over time, but the word report didn't appear, and the structure and format didn't appear, and so I just wanted to make sure that that was the intent, is that it was a working group going through actual data, and that it was with the intent of being able to work through that information. So if that is the intent and we're aligned, and just it's the way in which language is phrased, but being a data person, I looked for the word data or report and didn't see it, so I wanted to call that out.
The other thing to keep in mind is minutes will have to be taken.
Yep.
Documents that are shared and discussed will be attached to the minutes. So we'll have a full record of all of that as well, and that's all public.
Yep.
That's a good idea.
Okay, so the first thing we'll do then is we will, I will make a motion to establish a school budget subcommittee. Do I have a second?
Garcia, second.
All in favor? Unanimous. So the next step is, one of the requirements of this committee is that we have a member who is also on the town budget subcommittee. So there's some crossover. And Jim, I know you've expressed interest in that. Is there anyone else that would like to be a member of the budget subcommittee? I would. Kelly, anyone else? Okay. So I am going to make a motion to appoint Kelly Percio and Jim Hamilton to the newly formed school committee budget subcommittee. Do I have a second?
Second on this.
All in favor? Great.
It feels weird to favor myself, but thank you.
So the next part of that, which is the next item, is since both Kelly and Jim have taken on these added responsibilities, are there any other subcommittees that you feel that you want to step off of? You can't step off of negotiations and you can't step off of naming. So other than that,
is that an official part of bylaws, or is that just like Jackie's rules?
Jackie's rules.
Okay. Just checking.
Are there any other committees that you would like to step off of?
You're on a lot of committees, my friend, so you go first on that conversation.
I don't think so. I think that naming is one of the more time-consuming ones, and to be on the town budget subcommittee is a requirement to be on our new budget subcommittee, so I think I'm fine with where I am.
Okay. So, and here's the thing, if you, going along, find that it's too much, we can always revisit this. You can just let me know, we'll put it on the agenda and we'll look at it again.
Okay.
Kelly?
No, so the committees that I serve on, many of them, I know several on here are marked as active, but we did complete the food services RFP, and the Envision Easton work has been wrapped up as well, so I think they are not time consuming. The main other thing that and we do, it is listed as an active, we did hire Dr. Finance. So the other thing I do is the school wellness committee. I am comfortable staying on that unless someone has a keen desire and would like to participate in it. I'm more than happy to give that opportunity as well, if someone has a keen interest. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you guys, and again, if you change your mind as we go along, just let me know, and we'll take care of it. Thank you. Thank you for volunteering for this subcommittee. Thank you, Director Spagna. Okay. So the next item is the discussion and possible vote on school audit. Dr. Cabral?
Thank you. So first of all, thank you for putting together that subcommittee. I feel as though that was something that was missing. We understand you're on a lot of committees, so we appreciate the investment of your time. We are really short on staff in central office, also in the business department, so it is extremely helpful to have you volunteering your time for that. We really appreciate it. We know that our goals in central admin and particularly in the business office are not exemplary. They are perfection. We are looking for perfection. When things do happen, however, as in this case, we strive for trust and transparency. It's really important and paramount. And so the next item is something we are also recommending that we feel is important. We appreciate your support because there is a cost associated. But again, it's important to understand that the result of investments, especially when we are lacking some tools. Hopefully that we are seeing that when a situation happens that there is trust in the sense that clearly we're constantly looking for any errors or discrepancies, which is how we found this in the first place, and that we immediately created a very specific, detailed, and robust action plan to address it. And 2 of those items is the subcommittee and this external review. So we appreciate your support on that. In terms of transparency, we obviously notified the town that day. I think within minutes I made a phone call actually, and we had a conversation that day. We met with union leadership to explain specifically what happened. We met with the school committee to explain not only the action plan, but we had already even put things into place immediately before even meeting with the school committee. We then had a public and recorded meeting with the select board and the school committee, again, to detail and outline exactly what happened. We presented our action plan, which was accepted as is and supported, and we posted all the details. We have emailed it to all staff and families. We have it on the finance page of the town, as well as at least 3 places on our school website, if not more, but a minimum of 3 places. Created a FAQ, and we'll add to it as we get any other further questions. And so we hope that people see that and understand that as being trustworthy and transparent. We also, I certainly would not speak for the town, but our understanding to this point is that an uncomfortable amount of money was used from free cash last year to balance the budget, and that this does provide an opportunity for that to not be a way to balance the budget this year. Of course, that's totally up to them, That's just our current understanding of that. And so I've asked Director Spagna to investigate an external review. I think it will be extremely helpful. Changes in staffing are always a good opportunity to do something like this. And so beyond this issue, beyond this error, we want to make sure everything is reviewed so that Director Spagna can have very important information as he creates his structure going forward. And so I would ask Director Spagna to present that information to you, and hopefully you will accept the recommendation and we will be able to start that immediately.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. Good evening. I'd like to walk the committee through the recommendation process for securing an independent firm to conduct a targeted review using agreed upon procedures related to our budgeting and operation practices. This is about how we select a firm and why this type of review is the right tool for the work, not about approving a specific firm this evening. As the district prepares the FY27 budget, we have two related responsibilities. First, we need to gain a clearer understanding of what contributed to the $1.79 million over budgeting error in FY26 related to staffing requirements. That requires a focused look at how staffing assumptions, position controls, and calculations were developed and applied during the fiscal year 26 budget process. Second, we need assurance that the operating procedures currently in place, including the budgeting process used for FY27, are being followed correctly and producing accurate and reliable results. The purpose of this recommendation is to outline the most appropriate and defensible process for securing a qualified, independent firm to perform that work. The proposed engagement would be a targeted review or agreed upon procedure, not a full audit. Specifically, the work would include reviewing the FY26 budget development process to understand how the staffing-related over-budgeting occurred, reviewing operating procedures currently in place within the school department, reviewing the FY26 budgeting process to confirm that appropriate procedures were followed and that staffing and budgeting projections are accurate, supported, and consistently applied. The result would be a report of factual findings, what was done, how it was done, and where the controls or processes can be strengthened. It's important to distinguish this work from a full financial audit. A full audit is designed to look backward at a year-end financial statements and determine whether they are fairly stated. Audits are constrained by materiality and predefined audit standards. They do not examine in detail how budget models, staffing assumptions, or internal operating procedures are designed or applied during the budget process. A targeted review, on the other hand, allows the committee to direct attention to specific areas of concern, such as the FY26 staffing variance, current operating procedures, and the FY27 budgeting process, and receive a clear, fact-based findings on those areas. This approach provides more meaningful information for governance and oversight and complements rather than replaces the district's annual audit. What we are recommending tonight is the process for securing a firm. Under Chapter 30B, CPA firms are exempt from formal procurement requirements. However, the Office of the Inspector General strongly recommends using competitive process as a sound business practice. If a non-CPA firm was selected, written quotes would be required under statute. To ensure transparency, consistency, and best value, we're recommending using a written quote process regardless of the exemption status, based on clearly defined scope of work. The recommendation is obviously to utilize the budget subcommittee that's now been put in place to oversee this process, and that would include working with administration to finalize the scope of work, issuing and reviewing written quotes, evaluating processes based on qualifications, experience, and approach, bringing a recommendation back to the full school committee, or acting within delegated authority as appropriate. This keeps the work within the committee's executive governance structure and provides focused oversight on budget-related matters. Following this process, the committee can expect an independent clarification of the FY26 staffing-related budgeting error, assurance that the current operating procedures and the FY27 budget process are accurate and properly followed, stronger internal controls and budgeting practices going forward, and increased confidence in the budget information presented to the committee. In summary, the recommendation is to approve the process, specifically to use the written quote process in the budget subcommittee's oversight role to secure a qualified independent firm for this targeted review. This approach supports transparency, accountability, sound fiscal governance while addressing both prior year issues and current year assurance needs. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you may have any beyond that.
The second part of your memo goes through some of the firms.
Yes,
that
I
are approving.
provided a document that lists that there are 17 active firms that are qualified firms on the state vendor list, which we could select from. They are all CPA qualified firms. There are 2 others that come pretty much highly recommended that aren't on the state vendor list that I would recommend maybe even offering an opportunity to them too.
And so you're thinking, you talked this over with budget subcommittee, you kind of go through.
Yes, yep.
Are there firms on here that you've worked with in the past?
There's CLA is one firm I've worked with in the past.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm not fully understanding why you're not recommending a full audit.
An audit, like I said, an audit looks back at your financial statements from the previous year and they opine on whether it's fairly stated. They don't go into the details of what makes up the data. They don't go in and review the processes in place on what you've done. They do some testing on internal controls. They will test your controls by making selections from some existing data. What we're looking for is them to take the information that we have, dig deep into that information, try to determine how the FY26 budget was arrived at. That is not, an audit would actually provide constraints on what they need to do. They have to follow checklists, they have to follow certain procedures that wouldn't fit to what we're trying to do. I did have a conversation with a firm before putting this memo together, just to validate what I was thinking, and they were in agreement. They said if an audit was presented, cost would be an issue, obviously, because the audit would require more cost, more time, it would delay the information. But it would kind of tie their hands on how deep and what they can actually do, because it's set by guidelines by GASB, generally accepted accounting principles.
So this is more looking in like, where did something go wrong? What did we miss? Did we miss something else? How can we make sure not to have that happen in the future?
The request for quote, which I've already put together for review for the budget subcommittee, puts in a scope of work specific to what we're looking for. And that's what we would determine as the budget subcommittee, is that scope of work exactly what we're trying to accomplish.
If I may, I feel like it's could be a little confusing that we aren't doing necessarily like a full financial audit, but we're doing a targeted one. But I feel like this would be relatively broad to include the entire fiscal year 26 budget preparation process. This would not just be what happened that this $1.79 million was over allocated. It's every piece of.
Can you speak louder, please? I can't hear you back here.
Sorry, yep, I was saying it's not, the difference it sounds like on paper or from the presentation is we're not going to do a full financial audit, but we're going to do something that's very targeted. But the targeting will be relatively broad in the sense that it won't just look at what happened with this 1.79 million, it will look at, are there other issues that can be identified? So that's, to me, when I first read the memo, was we're not doing a full financial audit, we're doing this targeted thing, but the target will actually be relatively broad, is how I'm interpreting it.
And the scope of work that we put together as a committee will dictate how deep they go and where and how this should be directed.
It seems like it gives you more flexibility in what you want to look at.
Right. It does.
Okay.
So the focal point, as I understood it, is that you wanted to avoid time spent on traditional accounting practice details that might look for a control document so that we can actually spend more time in the review on the governance processes, going through the financials, things that we know were contributors to this around position control management and future changes, so we can really dive into the area. We have the ability as a budget subcommittee with as a team to dive into the areas that we have concerns about, to make sure there's nothing else missing, to do those things as opposed to a traditional.
Right.
I would have almost, in my mind, I equated it with a traditional classic financial audit versus using an audit firm to help us with oversight and process improvement and review of financials. So two different ways, it's just a mechanism by which we can drive out the use of the dollars and the resources to do the in-depth work that we want to do. Is that a fair?
And using the term audit, I know everybody thinks audit, oh boy, that's gonna be everything. There are limitations with an audit. Materiality is a big factor. If it's below a certain threshold, they don't even bother looking at it.
Right.
They'll note it, but they won't even look deeper at it.
Yep.
So those are the things we want to avoid.
And in the firms that you've listed here, do we know that all of them know how to do the type of review that we might be seeking? Or is that something we would discover through the audit process?
I looked at the combis or the state vendor list, and it does list in there the categories that they are that they are good at. And that, those 17 came from, I believe it was, I don't know if it was 3 or C, there was a section in there specific to the type of work they were looking at. And all 17 of those individual firms were on that list.
Have other districts run a similar type of this review audit that you're referring to? That would be a good comparison or lessons learned for us to work on?
The firm I spoke with has done it. They're very experienced at it. They're one of the firms I would recommend doing the RFQ with. They have, and their report's very factual, very straightforward. Different circumstances, not exactly the same situation as Easton Public Schools is, but yes, they have good experience.
Do you have any idea, I know you're just starting this process, but do you have any idea how long it usually lasts before you have a report from a company?
Well, from what I've heard, it's about 2.5 to 3 months of work, but that's using a financial system called Munis, which we're going to transition to. And
That's a software system?
The software system that the districts will use. That's an easier access to information. It might take a little bit longer depending on how we can get the information from SoftWrite if they need it.
Okay.
A lot of it, what we're doing is procedural. It won't be data from the system, but if there are delays. But I don't think we should be able to pull the information they need timely.
And when you're going through this, do you anticipate keeping in touch with Wendy Nightingale or the town budget subcommittee? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think that the review makes an awful lot of sense because it's procedures and systems that got us into this situation. But I feel like for folks sitting at home, like you said, when you hear audit, full audit, people are gonna feel like, ooh, they're not being transparent and upfront. So can you maybe speak like in layman's terms, because I don't 100% understand financials all the time. In layman's terms, what does a full audit reveal?
A full audit really just takes your prepared financial statements that the district or the management has assembled and put together. When you see financial statements, technically they're ours or they're the town's.
Right.
They're not the auditor's financial. They're just drafting the information we've provided to them. They're going through and doing some random testing throughout all the processes that we have. Sometimes it's walking through our internal controls and making sure that what we say we're doing, we are doing. And there might be a selection of 20 or 30 items that they'll pull out of hundreds to just confirm that that's happening. And they just validate that the numbers, the amounts, what we're stating as revenue and expenditures and all the activity is fairly stated. They'll never give you a statement saying they found everything. And it's a disclosure right in the audit report that says this is not a audit that will find every single issue that's come forward, but what they're saying is materially, your financial statements are fairly stated and not misleading. That's really all it is. It's not that it's bad, it's a good thing to do. You get a lot of benefit from the audit. You know, I look forward to the audit every year because hopefully they're gonna come back with me with some suggestions. What have I missed? What can we strengthen? Especially in the internal control part. If you have strong internal controls, you shouldn't be worried about an audit at any point. But this review will give us a little bit more flexibility to do specifically what we want, dig a little bit deeper into the information. It'll go above and beyond what a normal audit would do. It just won't give us an actual opinion by the audit firm. They'll just give us a report on what they found.
It's like compliance, right? Like a full audit is really about, are you following the rules?
of running a budget, where the targeted really gets into the nitty-gritty and you can really pinpoint what the issues might be.
And they will come up as well with suggestions on, you might be better if you do it this way, or your office should run a different way. And,
That's one of the things we'll put into the scope of work to make sure that they bring any recommendations forward.
So I forgot to mention this. So I'll send out tomorrow some dates for you guys to kind of set up your first meeting, and then.
Thanks, Jen. Question on duration. So is the full audit versus the review audit more timely and more likely to give us information going into this budget cycle?
The full financial audit?
The comparison of the two. I'm just trying to understand too, I think there's a sense of urgency we feel, right? So you had said you expect the review to be
2.5 to 3 months is what they said to me.
And similar on a full audit?
It's different because, where I came from, my previous district, we managed the entire audit. I was a regional, but before that I was a department of the town in Rhode Island, and we operated like a regional, so we had full control of all the functions of the district. That audit, I'll be honest with you, it might have taken a few months for them to draft the financial statements, but I saw them for 2 or 3 days. If everything's in line, it's not an arduous, tough thing to follow through. It should only take a month or two of actual on-site field work and working from the office as an audit firm. And then the drafting comes in, that's all behind the scenes. So it really, I would think it's about the same, I would guess. But I don't know. I don't know how it functions with the town of Easton and how the departments intertwine yet. I haven't gone through an audit with this town yet.
You feel, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think I understood that you feel that the review will give you a better understanding of the numbers, of where we stand, of the improvement in processes and controls, and a better baseline going forward. Like, you're recommending that review be done and give you the insights you need.
Absolutely.
To manage this going forward.
Yeah, I would like this firm to even take a look at how I've put together the FY27 budget, right? Just to my own confidence that, hey, I didn't miss anything, and you have some confidence in what I've presented that it's accurate, and it's, I don't want to say fairly stated because it's an audit term, but it's correct.
And that review of how you put together the next budget would not have been in a traditional full audit per se.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
You said the full audit would be retrospective, and you also just noted that using this firm would help you review the prospective budget that you've put together. So that is one of the differentiators. To do the review would allow us to look at the coming fiscal budget and review that, which we would not be doing a full audit. Like, I think that's an important differentiator to the point of how does everyone understand what we want to make sure is that going forward, we have the right information. So that's one of the differentiators.
And this review will actually, like I said in my, what I just read out to you, it's going to support the full financial audit that's going to take place at the end of the year regardless.
Okay.
So we have a full financial audit
every year.
Yeah.
We do.
Okay. And that's administered by, as a school or a town?
The town oversees it, but we're, as a department of the town, they should be coming in and doing a full audit of our financials also.
One related question, you mentioned Munis as a software system. I understand that is something that we are striving to move towards as a town.
Yes.
Because the software system we have today is
It's,
older.
I don't want to badmouth anybody,
Yeah,
but
no.
it's outdated.
That's what I was talking about.
Meet,
Outdated is the word I was looking
right,
for,
it
so thank you.
doesn't meet the needs of, at least for the school district, what we need.
Okay. Do we have any sense of the timing on the update?
Ms. Nightingale is, I think she's out today, but I did follow up with an email to her today, as a matter of fact, the status of the RFP. From what I understand, we had it pretty much drafted, just waiting for it to be finalized, and then we'll go through the process.
Okay. So that'll be happening in conjunction with all of this?
Yes, oh yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you for the thoroughness of this.
Yeah, I don't think we need to vote on this. I'm looking forward for you guys to start meeting and come up with suggestions for us. I think that will be great. Thank you very much for all your work on this. Okay, next item, review and possible vote on draft school committee annual report. So I included in your packets a draft of the school committee annual report. It's due to the town by February 13th, but I wanted to get you a draft early, so if there's significant edits, we'll still have another meeting that we can review it.
Thank you for drafting this.
And just keep in mind, this is, oh, no problem. This is for, it's for the school year, so it's a little different. So it started July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. So there are things that maybe have happened in the last couple months, and you might be like, why did you put that in there? Because that'll be for the next report.
That's not good.
Yeah.
Spelling.
Oh, please.
Thank you, Nancy.
Caroline.
I was thinking Nancy used to catch all the things. Caroline used to catch all the things.
Yeah.
Lauren's the new one.
Where is that? Okay.
And it's correct.
Sorry, Brandon. Okay, next. Comment, question, correction, omission.
Do we have any, I worry about leaving names out, and yet I don't have the most perfect notes to double check them. Is there anyone that could help you double check it, or maybe can you just go back?
Which part?
Some of the names, so we called out retirements, we called
Oh,
out
that
professional
came,
status.
that
or
came from central office. That
Okay.
was not me figuring that out.
Okay, I worry about leaving.
Yeah, no.
I could not think of anything that was missing when I did go back and check my notes, minus the fact that I didn't check names. I did have to go back to the fact that it was on a certain year, so thank you for that.
I know, it's confusing, because it's like, well, a lot has happened since then, but in next year's report. Are we good? Do you want to have another reading of this? Okay, so I'll take a motion to approve the school committee annual report with the edits so noted.
Second, Linus.
Do I have a motion?
So moved, Percio.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Okay. Okay, next item. Review of policy FFA, naming of school facilities and grounds, second reading and vote. So, if you remember, we had a first reading at our January 22nd meeting. The naming committee did an amazing job of revising this policy. Thank you very much. And for our naming committee members here. Any other questions or comments before we vote on this? Some of the organization issues was just me changing it from one document to Word to Google document. But if you look in the file, it actually looks good. I need a little help from Olivia these days. So no comments or questions on this? All right, so I will make a motion to approve policy FFA, naming of school facilities and grounds. Do I have a second?
Second on this.
All in favor? Unanimous? Great, guys, you can get going on this. Thank you so much for all your work. Next item on the agenda, discussion and possible vote on the override. At a prior meeting, the committee voted to have EPS be part of the override request. Given recent developments, I think we need to have another discussion about whether we should be part of the override. But before we have that discussion, I'd like to give you just some information. Assistant Town Administrator Sean Dugan went over the timeline for the override at the Select Board meeting. On February 9th, the Select Board will consider override requests by each board. In late February, the Select Board will specify and vote on the ballot questions and the amount of the override. April 21st are the deadline for voters to receive the municipal red book that explains override choices. April 28th is the town election. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. May 18th is the annual town meeting. Now tonight, members of the town budget subcommittee voted on the type of override they will recommend to the select board, if I'm correct, Dr. Cabral, Jim, menu?
Yes.
Menu. So the menu override. Okay. So before we decide if we want to be part of this at this point, Dr. Cabral, do you want to go over for us what our ask would be if we became involved with this? Do you want us to sit?
Thank you.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, you're actually just 5 seconds ago. No.
All set, Chair Weitzman? All set?
Yep.
So, yes, before this meeting, Joe, Director Spagna, Jim Hamilton, and myself met with the town budget subcommittee. And the result of that was that the town budget subcommittee members, of course, Assistant Town Administrator, currently Acting Town Administrator Sean Duggan, and myself abstained, as we're not part of that vote. But the consensus of the committee was a menu option. If you remember, the options were an omnibus, which was what was previously presented and all-encompassing. That was clearly rejected by voters, and so your committee, budget subcommittee, many committees certainly don't want to go down that path again. And so other options were menu, tiered, or pyramid, and multi-year. This committee we shared with the budget subcommittee was relatively split between menu and tiered, and the meeting, of course, was recorded so people can watch it, but I think our takeaway was that while some people on the committee had a preference of one form over another, that they found that the survey that was completed by residents helped them or directed them toward the menu option. Other information that's on there that you may want to consider that, again, I'm sure they're going to post on the town website, is that when they asked if there were some override option, which would you support? Not the option, but which departments would you support? The response was public safety had 959 survey responses. I don't want to say votes, survey responses. Education had 826. The Department of Public Works, 806. General Government, 246. Health and Community Services, 482. And the library was 471, to give you a sense of what the survey results were. As we talk about what override options are, we wanted to, first of all, we want to be clear that the entire leadership team participated. We went school by school and had each leadership of the schools present what they felt was most important, or they're all important. What was a priority in terms of bringing back? When you take into account things like enrollment in certain areas, or requirements from the Department of Education, or directions that we're moving as a district. All of those things were taken into account. They were presented, and then the entire team came together again, and with the principals, we discussed which things, how do we prioritize some things over others. What we wanted to focus on very clearly was bringing things back. We're certainly not trying to invent new things, with the exception of if there is a shift in a certain population, we have to meet that need. That's something that we don't know until it presents itself. And special education requirements. We're always going to have to adjust to meet the needs that are required by law. We don't have an option there, and the same is true of when shifts in enrollment happen. When they go down in a certain area, you're able to move resources to an area where they go up. So as a result, we determined we also had some investments that we've been making, some efficiencies that we're starting to see come to fruition a little bit earlier than we anticipated. Again, these things happen as a result of just population shifts. And so while we have several items that we're seeing are bringing about some savings for the district, whether it's the leasing of copiers or different ways we're paying for capital expenses, we had two things in particular that are proving to pay off for us, if you will, in terms of finances, a little bit sooner than we had anticipated. They both are special education programs, so specifics in terms of perhaps numbers of students or tuition costs or things of that nature, we have breakdowns for and we can present them to you in executive session, because while the financial savings are large, the number of people it represents is very small. And so we wouldn't have that conversation in public just to protect the confidentiality of students. But we have the breakdown and can provide you with all of that information. One is therapeutic learning program, and the other is the multidisciplinary learning program that we have been talking about. We have TLC programs in the district now. We expanded that this year and are already seeing savings. And when I say savings, that is in terms of not bringing our children back to our district by investing in programs that are created through cost-neutral means. So we wouldn't create a program until or unless we were aware that we had a population that could be served at that moment that would make it a cost-neutral proposition. What we didn't realize is that we are actually able to have an increased revenue in terms of more students, of our students, that can be served, that didn't present themselves at the time, that it was cost neutral. Now it's actually saving money. And the same is true of the multidisciplinary learning program. It's extremely rare to have a cohort of students with similar needs, like the multidisciplinary program. That has just happened for us. We see that that is taking place at a particular grade level. We have communicated this to our staff, our union leadership, and the school committee. We've talked about it at a couple of meetings now, where the number one priority is creating the least restrictive environment for our children. So this creates an opportunity to have our children from Easton educated here in our schools, as opposed to having them go to an outside placement, which incur significant, first of all, they're not the best placement for students if we have a program in district. We want them to be in their neighborhoods with their friends, being able to participate in the multitude of opportunities that we have in our school that some of these outside placements don't provide to them. And so we have an educator in the district that is highly qualified in this area. We, again, anticipated it would be cost neutral. It's actually turning into a point where it is now creating a savings for us. But we wanted to be extremely cautious about this, because as we know, this is solely directed by the needs of children. And so children can move out, children can move in. They may need a different placement. Just because we have a program doesn't mean it's the best placement for every student. That is handled through the team IEP process for students. But as of now, these are giving us an opportunity to project very conservatively a $400,000 savings for next year. Again, it could be more, but we don't want to count on something that is a possibility. The reason we want to move forward with bringing back these items and reinvesting that money into our district is because we do have revolving accounts that have to be used for specific purposes, and this is one of those specific purposes. So if for some reason that becomes a $200,000 savings next year instead of a $400,000 savings, we would be able to leverage the special education revolving account to pay for the rest of it. So we are confident that this can be done next year. We are just as confident that it can happen for one more year. It is not a long-term fix to use revolving accounts. I need to make that really clear because we're going to have subsequent conversations about revolving accounts and the spend down plan for revolving accounts and how they can't be depended on regularly because they're finite funds. But we could leverage next year or the year after. Now, if we see that we are realizing more of a savings and it is a successful program and we predict that the students will be there long term, again, conservatively, we can add to this. So we asked the team to come up with the very first priorities. And as you heard, when we were talking about the override last time, this should not look different than what we talked about bringing back if we were able to get an override last year. It starts with 3 elementary teachers. These would be between Blanche Ames and Richardson Olmsted. We want to make sure that our youngest learners have reasonable class sizes. As we build the new school, we are seeing a larger population come in at the younger grades. That continues to happen. And so we are well aware that students who are successful and have the foundational skills in the elementary grades perform better as they move through the system. We certainly, and I'm probably going to say this with every slide, we are certainly not saying this is all we need. We still have significant needs in the district. But if we need to prioritize on how we would invest in immediate savings, this is what the recommendation is. The music teacher, it has been shared with us in a very thoughtful way, and we agree wholeheartedly that the 0.6 music teacher is necessary because that's part of that is, or most of that is a function of adding elementary size classes. When you add an elementary class, you add to the number of sections you have for specials. So you need to have a special where the students can participate. So you can't typically add elementary teachers without also taking a look at your specials. And so that goes specifically with that. And then the 1.0 learning specialist. This is a new position, and again, based on what I said prior, we have to look at the shifts in student population and what the needs are. And what's happening right now is if we look at the increased number in the elementary grades, we are seeing that the caseloads at the elementary levels are increasing as well. We don't have a significant decrease in another area where we can move a professional over to that level, and so the reason we're thinking now that this is at the elementary level, but again, we're not identifying it because it depends specifically on caseloads for each professional. It may need to shift if the children's needs shift before next year starts. But right now, it's presenting as an elementary issue for caseloads. So this is not an override request. This is what we're saying. We're taking savings, and we hope we will realize even more. Potentially by the end of the year, we may realize more savings. And then we can consider how reliable are those. We have no longitudinal data on this because we're talking about, in essence, 2 new programs. So we have to be conservative because what we don't want to do is hire staff that are not going to be here long term. However, we were asked to come up with options for a potential override. Before I get to those though, one of the things that we discussed as a leadership team and we unanimously felt was very important is that while our responsibility is the school department and the children and their families, we don't live in a bubble. And we are well aware of what's happening in other departments in the town. And while this will not solve all of our needs for next year, we do believe that this will enable us to have more of a level service of what we have this year for next year. And so it may be an opportunity to allow the town to focus on emergency services such as fire and police. But we are going to give you options for override should you decide to go that route, and there are choices. Again, they're all prioritized based on what the leadership team has expressed, and that we wholeheartedly support. Any questions about this part? So if we take a look at levels, what we intentionally didn't do was call this tiers or menus, because prior to a few hours ago, we didn't know what the recommendation was going to be. And so we wanted to leave it as an option. The school committee could determine what might be necessary. We are seeing a huge influx from the middle school of students who are choosing French at the high school. And we are seeing decreases in other areas. And so the recommendation is a 0.4 world language teacher in French to address those needs. Otherwise, the students will not be able to continue in French, potentially not be able to meet their requirement for foreign language until their second, third, or fourth year of high school. The data specialist, we are finding that, as you saw, IT Director Livia Ramus is doing an outstanding job, but she's doing the job of two people. And we don't want things to fall through the cracks. It's very difficult, certainly not saying that she's not doing it well, but we have no oversight. There's nobody else in that department that can review the data that is submitted to the Department of Education. That data is used for many things. It's used to make sure that we are in compliance, that we're not in violation of the law. It's also used for things like determining if we're eligible for grants and entitlement funds. And so it actually costs us money if things are reported inaccurately in our Sims and EPIMS data, our civil rights data, and the many other data points that go to the town, that go to the state that they use in determining what we receive for payments that we need to maintain for other services. Art has also seen an increase in participation, but what we don't meet right now is what is called Mass Core. And Principal Kavanaugh has been working for several years to try to get us to Mass Core. Mass Core is not currently mandatory, though there is legislation and conversation about making it mandatory. To do that in 1 year would be very cost prohibitive. It is a list, if you look up Mass Core, C-O-R-E, online, you can see it is a recommended list of courses that students need to pass in order to graduate. It's different than a graduation requirement, it's different than a competency determination, but not only is it best practice, but again, it may become mandatory. And so one of those areas is having multiple years in the, or every single student participating in the arts. Right now, we don't have enough staff to provide that. A paraprofessional at Richardson Olmsted, maintenance, we have tried, some of our reductions last year were in maintenance staff and custodians. It's very important that we maintain our buildings and that we do so in a way that, again, doesn't create long-term financial impacts. If we continue to address issues reactively, not only is it less comfortable for people who are in the buildings, it's less clean for people who are in the buildings, but it ends up being more expensive. And so investments like the programs, investments like making sure that we do preventative maintenance on our buildings saves us money in the long run. And a clerical aide at Richardson Olmsted, again, trying to go without that, and the school has expressed a need to reinstate that position. Again, these are positions that were removed from the budget to go back into the budget. They're not creating anything new. Even the art position, even though we're moving toward Mass Core, that was a reduction. That would total $247,200. Again, you're going to see that number probably change. We use estimates. If you don't know who you're hiring, you don't know what step and lane they're on, we do a conservative, we do a conservative figure based on the teacher contract, on paraprofessional contracts, but we want to make sure that we're attracting qualified candidates as well, and that has been very difficult post-COVID when less people are going into the profession. And so what we use as a placeholder is actually a little bit higher. The next level, again, because it's an order of priority, we would not recommend these as menu items. What we would recommend is that level 2 represents what is in level 1 and then what is in level 2. So we would not recommend that you choose 1 or 2 or 3 as though it's a menu. You can certainly combine these if you like. You can focus on 1 if you like. You can focus on all 3. But the important part to consider is that these are in numerical order for a reason. The team worked together. They advised us. We had conversations with them about things that are coming up. And together, we determined that these were the priorities. So please understand that 2 is a combination of level 1 and then level 2 added to it. That includes things like a half-time school psychologist. That is, again, that's a result of a reduction last year. Chromebook carts, even with the amazing grant that Director Ramus was able to secure, and that's another example of finances. She would be able to focus a lot more on some of these alternative funding sources, grants, even help working on entitlement grants and keeping track of the inventory to make sure that there are licenses not being used. They're all part of money-saving measures. And so we have gotten a lot of feedback, especially at the middle school, which makes sense because the high school is 1-to-1. The middle school is the feeder for the high school. And so what we would do is look at it in descending order. So we're looking at separating the 250 we just received, but what we want to do is invest in more Chromebooks so that we can go in descending order of the grades, so that we can prepare them vertically for the 1-to-1 use at the high school. We also have been trying to bring back some lunch playground aids. We did that this year with some of the savings, again, from the TLC program. We reluctantly reduced paraprofessionals' time in classrooms. That you know how important that has been to us because it's the beginning of my tenure anyway, and I don't know how long before that, there was not one paraprofessional in every kindergarten classroom. There was not 2 paraprofessionals in every pre-K classroom. And it took us several years to build to the point where that was the case because we understand that that is best practice. Unfortunately, we, in order to preserve paraprofessional positions, we had to eliminate some lunch playground aid positions. The paraprofessionals serving on the playground takes them out of the classroom, and that's not what we're looking to do. So the first thing that we did, and the only thing we've done this year so far, is bring lunch playgrounds aids so that we can get paraprofessionals back in the classroom where we need them. This would allow that to happen even more at the Richardson Olmsted School, excuse me. Instructional coach, and this one is math. An instructional coach position was reduced at Richardson Olmsted, at Blanche Ames, but we put math in there because we want to be really clear. It's not the return of that exact position. Now that we're doing the math assessments, we are seeing that what has worked really well in terms of the ELA instructional coaches is not happening with the math at Blanche Ames because there is no math instructional coach at that level. And the same thing with literacy is true with numeracy. If we can build a strong foundation with students, if we can make sure that we meet their needs and support teachers in the way that we support them in ELA, that the students will have more success as they continue through the grades. And 0.6 world language or Spanish at the high school. This actually would ideally, and Ms. Kavanaugh would have this in mind, if this were something we were able to move to, she would actually try to, if we got to level 2, would actually try to hire a dual certified foreign language person. They do exist. They are difficult to find. We are resourceful to be able to teach both French and Spanish if we were able to get to this level. So that would actually represent a full position of probably one person. That column only totals $247,100, so that was not a goal. I don't know why it was only $100 different, it just worked out that way. The total of 1 and 2 together is $494,300. And then finally, and I really want to preface this, and I want to say it over and over again, what shows up in the third level is a combination of first, adding second, and then adding the third level to that, and probably more importantly, does not solve all of the needs we have in the Easton Public Schools right now. It does not. We are trying to be conservative. We are also trying to keep in mind the broader community and the needs of other departments. So please do not think that this is an exhaustive list, that this brings back every position that we've lost. All those positions were put in place intentionally because they are needed in the district. This does not do that. This is a very conservative approach. Level 3 consists of more Chromebook carts. Again, we're finding at every level that we're being asked to try to either provide more carts so that teachers actually have them available for their classrooms readily when they want to use them. I don't know, in case you're going to ask, I don't know what that means in terms of a one-to-one program or bringing back a one-to-one program, because again, we have to think long-term and they have a shelf life. And every year that we bring more into the district, others are dying or getting destroyed or getting to the end of their useful life. A math teacher at all of our Ames, because to meet the needs of the math department, we actually went without a math teacher. Ms. Kavanaugh clearly articulated the need to add another teacher in that department. 2 EMS teachers. Again, we didn't put a particular grade because it depends on the population of students. It happens that next year we have a larger 5th grade class coming into the 6th grade. Perhaps Mr. Carroll would use it in that way, or he might find that the needs of a particular grade or working with his staff, that it would be important for other grades. But where it stands right now is that that is a need for an increased population coming into the middle school. Blanche Ames and Richardson Olmsted have found that the teachers make a lot of use of scholastic news, and not having that has created or creates the need for something else. This is the preferred program. Sorry? This is the preferred program that has been shared with us. We would like to support that. And then finally, a .6 music teacher at OA. Again, we're hoping to build up that program. There is 1 teacher at OA right now. That is a function of student interest. We respond to, at the high school level, to what students sign up for. And we can't run courses that maybe have 3 to even 10 students in them. This would help to bring that up, and it would also help us toward reaching Mass Core. But the hope is that we are building up interest in the music program. We are seeing that a lot of students are participating in the music program in the younger grades, and so this would hopefully meet that need. This level, just this level, is $365,400. Again, it depends on who is hired for a particular position, what that is, or if needs change based on the placement of a student that's needed or students returning, where we could potentially maximize those dollars. And the total of all 3 together would be $859,700. Okay. The principals are here. If there are specific questions that you would like to ask, I'm sure between us we could answer as many of them. So the summary recommendation, we want to leverage investments that we have put in that were cost neutral, that now are actually creating a return. Conservatively, we could invest up to $400,000. even if some movements were in place, because you have to consider that that's a possibility, we could leverage revolving accounts. We kind of call this level 0 because we want to make sure it's not considered part of the override. This is what we're looking to bring back to the district, and then I have to really highlight this. This does not fulfill the needs everywhere. This does not make it so that every classroom, every school is made whole as a result of the structural revenue deficit in town. This is a really important point. But we want to make sure that we are being fiscally responsible with the ask in light of what's happening in other departments. And that is in no way a slight to my colleagues, the chiefs. There's no way to predict that if you eliminate 2 positions, other people may leave. We actually predicted that there may be a lot of people leaving the school department, and we didn't realize, we didn't see that that was true. So you just try to make the best predictions that you can. Because of the needs that they have encountered, we think that it is, again, it's really important that we keep that in mind. We would suggest that this could be a possibility for next year, like this. But as you heard, the budget subcommittee is recommending a menu. And so if you want to consider any of these to propose as the school committee, you certainly could do that. And this is the approximate cap. Now we would give them a fixed amount, obviously, and then knowing that that might change slightly based on who is hired, when they're hired, and so forth. If they're not hired until a month into the school, it costs less because you don't pay them for that amount of time. But that's what we feel we can absorb in the budget, and again, leveraging our limited revolving accounts. So I'm gonna leave this one here. It's reflected in the back, so if you wanted to come back and you could look at it while you have your discussion, again, we'll try to answer any questions that you may have.
Do you guys want to stay here or you want to go back up? Stay here. Questions on this? Comments? Feelings?
The audience can't hear you.
Questions? Comments? Feelings? Committee members? Anything? Jim? Lauren? Colleen? Kelly?
I have a question. One of the things that we received this week was an update on Governor Healy's funding for next year, expected funding for next year. We are talking about here things that we would look to restore. We have not talked about any what we project to be shifts in revenue coming into the district, or state funding, I wouldn't call it revenue, but state funding coming into the district. Are we, my understanding of it was that it appears that we may lose or receive less state funding coming into the district than we received this year. How does that factor into these numbers?
So the governor's budget that came out yesterday, which again, this is just the first start.
Right, that's a really important point.
Right.
Because it's the governor's, and then of course, you know, it has to go through House and Senate, it has to go through Ways and Means, and then it goes back to the governor. So there are many iterations.
And so her proposal is $75 per pupil. Our UGA, unrestricted government,
generally,
went up slightly. I have actually, I'm just going to go over this in my notes. So the unrestricted government money that we get went up slightly than what the town was carrying. It gives us an additional $8,178. However, the town was carrying an estimate of $100 per pupil based on what we got last year. If it stuck with $75, that would increase our budget deficit by $82,875. Again, this could change.
For the town.
For the town, yes.
Right, the UGA is received by the town, Chapter 70 is received by the town, the deficit is the town's deficit,
Right,
that's not
this is
the
all,
school's.
when I say it was carried by the town. So we just don't know it. That's not a great start, certainly. Her starts have never been great. So, for the schools. So, in this form. So, one of the things they talked about in the select board meeting was that this is the time that we get on our legislators.
Yep.
And we really lobbying them, and we really get involved. And that's what we're gonna have to do going forward in this budget process.
Well, that's actually very typical. We do it every year. This is the time of year when the first governor's iteration comes out that we start lobbying our legislators. I send written testimony every year to our Senate and House representatives. I work with the town administrator, and we answer questions. We go to the State House. This happens every year. This is actually, the fact that this came out this way is not unusual at all. It's really good for people to be engaged in the process and see how this works and see why it's so mercurial for us, because this is just the first iteration of the budget. It goes all the way through until like the end of school. And after, sometimes, even after town meeting, when we have a budget voted on. So this is a very normal beginning. So I'm not saying that in a comforting way, because it's very uncomfortable every year. We have to make our budget based on longitudinal information and how things have gone, but it's not 100% reliable. We don't know what Chapter 70 is going to be. We don't know what minimum aid is going to be. The law says $30 per student, so it could be $30 per student. But we have to remember, we're not the only ones that start kicking in legislatively now. This is our busiest legislative season, is between when the governor's budget comes out and when it's finalized after town meeting. The more people that speak to this, the better. A very simple one is minimum aid. If minimum aid can be maintained at $150 per student, now we've only gotten that one time. There was an outlier, we were thrilled, but we planned our budget not thinking we would get that. That's why I say we do it conservatively, because it was an outlier. For most of my career, it's been $30 per student. It was $45 once, it was $60 once, and it was $150 once. So we try to take that into consideration. Other things, the lunch program, the free meal program. Last year at this time, the governor cut that budget down. So while her first iteration of minimum aid was higher, she was cutting down on the food service program, which would have sent us potentially into a deficit of $250,000 or more. So this year, it's a little bit different. We have the minimum aid going down a little bit, but she's fully funding lunch and breakfast. Again, that doesn't mean, I don't want to say it doesn't mean anything, but it doesn't really mean anything at this point in terms of what we're actually going to get. There's a lot of things that happen. We are not the only people that are lobbying. Everybody else in different industries who want money for other things are going to be up there as much as we are. So we, as superintendents, hold a legislative breakfast every March. We're going to be petitioning our legislators on exactly what our needs are. We're not unique, fortunately or unfortunately. What we found is that what we're experiencing in Easton is what my colleagues across the Commonwealth are experiencing. And so we try to work in numbers. We are going to Day on the Hill, Mask Day on the Hill. We'll be at the State House again for that. There are many things that happen between now. It's a tough time of year when people are saying, well, why aren't you in classrooms right now? Or why weren't you at this particular game? It's because we're in Boston an awful lot. Because this is the time where we can make a difference on, hopefully make a difference on what we're able to bring into the district from the state level. And so any assistance from people who are constituents of this area would be to reach out legislatively. Again, I'm going to be drafting my testimony. I provided testimony on Chapter 70 specifically. I can share all of this information with people who want to reach out to their representatives, to their senators. Where that will land, we don't know. But this is the beginning of our very busy season in that realm.
I had just a similar question on federal funding. Are we aware at this point in time, or any degree of clarity on our federal funding considerations for next year as we think about the override situation, what we may or may not need support on? Because this, I assume, as I understood it, what you're proposing here assumes that funding remains the same.
Again, we
for
try
us
to
put
be
this together.
conservative in our
Yeah.
estimation. We have found out in some years what our federal entitlement grants will be in August, when school is starting in September. So we do our best to project it, but we don't get final numbers. It has always been trying to look at a moving target and do the best that we can with the experience that we have to get as close to that target as possible. With the current administration, this has been different than my experience in the last 35 years. So what I have been able to explain is a typical ebb and flow of entitlement grants. Now, there are things happening that we have never seen before, like entitlement awards that have been given or ESSER funds that have been given that partway through, this didn't happen in Easton, but in other districts, partway through a building project or partway through a capital investment, they have been told you're not getting any more money for that. And they're halfway through with something. That has never been our experience before. And so we are watching it very closely. We report to you here, of course, anytime we learn something new, but it's been more unpredictable than ever before. We've never had funding approved that we didn't get. What we struggled with in the past is how much we were getting and when we would get it. And advocating with the commissioner, we've gone up, I've asked the commissioner to take a look at how the entitlement funds are determined, who is eligible for the entitlement funds, and why some of their formulas are flawed in terms of determining that. SOA, the Student Opportunity Act, excuse me, we received nothing for the Student Opportunity Act. There was a huge $1 billion investments in the Student Opportunity Act in this iteration of the budget. It does not affect us at all because we don't receive any of that. There are a lot of things in that budget that we don't get. And so even looking at the budget, you know, a lot of people might say, well, that's education, this is education, that looks really great. Easton isn't entitled to that because of our demographics or because of our population, even people that work in town. Never mind people that live here. People who work in the town. That's the wage adjustment factor works. So that's why I'm often at town meetings when we're talking about things like sewers or building projects, and it sounds very disassociated from the school department. It's because the wages of people who work in the town are actually worked into some of these formulas. And so there are many different avenues and ways that we're working to try to, all of them simultaneously, bring what we believe is our fair share into Easton. We've been successful in some areas, and some others we haven't. What I have learned is that any legislation rarely happens the very first time. It takes an average of about 7 to 10 years. So we just stay at it, and we do it again every single year until we're able to hopefully realize some of the fruits of our labor.
Other questions or comments? Go ahead, Jim.
I have a few thoughts, but I do have a couple questions. Just the revolving accounts, tier 0, or level 0. Those are essentially one-time accounts. Is that fair to say, or savings accounts that they don't just reset to the same number each year?
No, none of them reset. Some of them do have funds going into them. For example, our maintenance of facilities, whenever we have rental fees, they go into the revolving account. They can only be used for specific purposes, which are facilities and maintenance. You can't use it to hire a person, for example. So the more we spend, the faster it gets spent down. Others, like kindergarten, there is no more money going into that because we don't charge kindergarten tuition anymore. That can only be used for kindergarten. That is very specific to, that is one of, other than special education, that is one of our most unpredictable grade levels. because as I've said many times before, especially for first-time parents, they often don't think about kindergarten for their little one until the summer. Even though we have registration every winter, we have orientation and sign-ups by March every year. We try to get information out and let people know that we really need to know how many students are coming. But not only do many people think that they have time for that and they wait, we also have a lot of move-ins. A very popular time for families in particular to move to a new town is after their students have completed a school year. And so we don't even know that some of these littles exist. Unless they have a sibling in our school, we don't even know that they're here. The census, we've tried to use the census, it's not reliable, it's not helpful. And so that kindergarten is potentially can be used for kindergarten teachers, kindergarten paras, but there's nothing going into it. So if we ever get a particular year where we have a spike, because we're planning the budget now, if we don't put a kindergarten teacher in it now, and then we have 30 more kindergarten students come in, we don't have a choice. It's mandatory. We have to dip into that.
I guess what I'm trying to think through, like for the committee, right, is
Jim, they can't hear you.
level 0 is based on what I think it's one-time revenue we would be borrowing or taking from a potentially one-time accounts.
Level 0, no.
Level 0.
Level 0
It
is
says revolving accounts.
right. Hang on. Level 0.
So estimates, we would be taking from estimates of potential efficiencies and or.
That's a conservative estimate because we don't want to use revolving accounts. But what we can't do is predict if there's a multi-number level of students that move that is completely unexpected. We could continue to use that for the gap, not for the total. The chances that there would be none of that $400,000 savings is highly unlikely. And again, we're not saying we project a $400,000 savings and so we're reinvesting the entire thing. We have to be fiscally conservative for exactly what you're talking about. We don't want to go into revolving accounts, but we wouldn't even suggest reinvesting it if we didn't know that for, it depends how many years it would help us to supplement that because it depends how much you're actually taking out of it. We may only take $30,000 out of a revolving account or nothing.
Yeah, I think for the committee, my other concerns are, say we were to go with one of levels 1 through 3, like a question I have is like how much runway does that really give us? Because when we did PACE, which I know is a totally separate thing, I mean, they only estimated out to 28, fiscal year 28, fiscal year 29. My other concerns, just thinking this through the different options, is we are about to start an audit, and I think there's a reasonable amount of feedback from the community that they would wait until the audit is complete. And that leads into my final point where personally I feel like we only have so many attempts to try to ask the town for an override. And I feel like if we go this spring, we technically can try again next year. I just don't know. Is that fair at some point to say, like, are we just going to keep trying and pushing people to vote to raise their own taxes again and again? I don't know. I don't know how many attempts we really have to try to get this right.
And to be clear, the town has expressed this as well. If they are using a menu, as is the case with the menu, that will not be a long-term solution even for those departments. And I'm sure that will be communicated by the town when they're discussing any override options. This is not a long-term solution. And even what police, fire, DPW, whatever departments, what they ask for will not be a long-term solution. Unless, I mean, should they come forward with a figure that's in the millions, we know from PACE, even the amount that was asked for in the omnibus override last year was only for a couple of years. It's not a long term fix. That is absolutely true.
So if I understand correctly, the tier 0, if you will, because we're bringing students back and we're not having to pay tuition costs like that.
Tuition, transportation,
all the things.
One-on-one professionals, potentially, yes.
That allows us to restore some positions, like regardless of anything else, overrides, anything. That allows us.
Yes.
That allows us to restore those pieces. So 3 more teachers at the elementary, a music teacher, and then a kindergarten learning specialist, which I assume is it's like a special ed, moderate special needs teacher.
A learning specialist at the elementary level, because that's where the current caseloads are. If those shift before next year, they may need to make an adjustment, because it has to be based on the needs of the students, based on the IEPs. Sure.
So I don't have any questions. So what are you all thinking about putting any money on an override?
Can I make a suggestion? If you are good with this and there's anything you want to see, we can put it up there, but I think people will be able to hear you better with the microphones being here, and the audience may be able to hear you better as well.
Can I ask you a process question? The way it was written on our agenda was possible vote. Is today's meeting the meeting we need to make a determination on this?
Yeah, because, so on February 9 is when the select board is going to be talking to the boards about what they want. So we need to make a decision before February 9. Okay. And this is our last meeting before February 9. We can always try to call another meeting if you want, but we're not going to have any other information. At least I don't think so. So, I mean, it's just yes. I don't know. I mean, my feeling is we either ask for nothing or we just ask for that first year.
I agree with you. I agree with what Jim said. However, I think we owe it to the students and the community to try. And
I mean, I think that the benefit of the menu, right, is because I think we're all concerned about police and fire, DPW. I mean, we all live here, we're concerned about all of this. Even if you don't live here and you work here, the ambulances are coming to your school, you know, this is critical. And so we don't want to do anything to take away from that. And I think that's kind of the most important point for me. But I do agree with what you just said, that we do owe. I mean, I think this is such a small ask in the grand scheme of things.
So Jimmy made the point of, you don't want to keep coming back and asking. I think the struggle that is in my mind is if we choose to not participate in the override and ask for anything. I don't know that there would be a schools only override that anyone would have the appetite for a year from now? Like if we're voting on an override as a town, unless we have a massive loss of federal funding potentially or other a deficit trigger that everyone sort of rallies around, I don't know that there would be a chance to go back a year from now for the school. So I think that's a concern in my brain is if we're not on this menu at all, which I agree with you, Jackie, I would not feel comfortable asking for a lot, but if we were not on this menu at all, I don't know that there would be an appetite to seek support from the townspeople in terms of a tax implication for a while.
I appreciate it. I think my thought, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course,
is
please. No, that's why I want the discussion.
By having a menu override, it is going to be, do you want to give money to the schools? Yes or no?
Yeah.
So
Right.
it is going to be like,
Right.
if we went spring next year by ourselves, or by the schools by their own, it's essentially the same
Yeah.
thing. Because they could vote yes, police, fire, no schools.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
spring.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess my question, let me clarify what I'm hearing. Do you anticipate though that if we're not on this menu, do you think, and this is especially critical to you and Jackie because you're on the budget subcommittee, so you have a little bit different temperature check than we do. Like, do you think that we would be able to go back a year later and do a schools only override? Because my sense is that the town's fatigued with the conversation, and so I can't imagine that we'd be able to go back for a little while. But maybe you see it differently, because I'm hearing you say something that makes me wonder if you see it differently.
Yeah, I think if we go back a year, if we needed to, of course, if we had to go back a year from now, I know there's always a need, sorry, but if we were in that situation to go back a year from now, I think we would have a full audit report, financial review in our hands. We'd have a year of school committee, budget subcommittee under our belts. It might improve our chances, and like I said, I think my biggest concern is how many shots do we have to do this right.
Yeah.
You know, if we do it now, I mean, yeah, it might pass. It isn't an overwhelming number, but
I think the audit though is a good point because when we, back in, what was it, 2017? 2016, there was a call for an operational audit. Operational audit, what was it called? The audit that we had, do you remember?
Before my time.
Before your time? Anyone? We had this huge audit, and it really impacted our ability, I think, to get an override passed because the audit wasn't done, I don't think, before the override.
I was going to ask, can you just recap for me, and I apologize, I wish my brain was yours and I had all these written out, but I try to do it on here to save paper, trying to save paper. I know you printed at home to save paper too, so yours better than the other. What are the dates again for the override processes? Because I want to line that up in my head against the audit timing that we just
So February 9th, the select board will consider override requests by each board.
Okay.
Late February, I don't have a specific date, the select board will specify and vote on the ballot questions and the amount of the override. So whatever the next February meeting is. April 21st is when we should all get the municipal red book that explains the override choices.
Mm-hmm.
April 28th is the town election, which will also vote on the budget. And then May 18th is the annual town meeting that will vote on the budget.
Okay, so the override would be on the town meeting. Is it also on the ballot?
It'll be on the ballot on April 28th.
Okay. So that is.
And then
3 months
whatever passes, if anything passes on that 28th,
Mm-hmm.
that will be, correct me if I'm wrong, that will be incorporated into the budget that we will vote on at town meeting.
Okay. So we have every reason to believe, based on those dates and what we've heard tonight, that we would not be complete with the audit by that point in time, because we still have to find the audit group.
Right.
And then have a
Right,
2.5, 3
because you have to
month
remember
window.
there's
Right.
also a break in February.
Right.
So, yeah, so it's.
I mean, it would be.
Right. You're not gonna have
Unless,
it,
yeah.
you're not gonna have it by the time.
And I would say, just to, if this helps, is remember last override, we voted for the in-town meeting for the budget first.
That's why I was trying to understand.
Then ballot vote happened after,
Right.
but
Yep.
ballot vote, I don't wanna, is the one that counts.
Right.
So it's even
It's the
even
harder
earlier
one
in
to
the
get
sense that like
passed. Right.
April 28th is
Yeah.
first now, and that's the one that,
That's what I was trying to understand,
Is-
the sequence and timing, because last year it was a different order. And I was trying to understand how much insight between the subcommittee and the audit we might have going into.
yeah, and that just, if the audit could even get done, it would ideally probably have to be done by that April 28th date for that vote.
Right,
Not
to-
so much the May 10th for the
Right.
town meeting is.
That was my thought
Right,
process
because if
was.
something doesn't pass on April 28th, it's not going to get voted on by May.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's, does anyone need any more information that they feel that they need before this vote? All right, so I'm gonna make a motion and please, we'll do a roll call vote so we know where everyone stands. I'm gonna make a motion that we do not participate in the override at this time. Do I have a second?
Hamilton second.
Roll call vote?
Tell me the motion again.
That we do not participate in the override at this
Stay
time.
at the zero. Proudly, yes.
Proudler, yes, you agree with my motion?
Correct.
Okay.
Percio, yes.
Wiseman, yes?
Hamilton, yes.
Okay, so we have 4-1. Vote that at this present time, Easton Public Schools will not be part of the April 28th override vote to be revisited after our audit is complete.
Can I?
Yep, say whatever you want.
Sorry.
Nope.
I do that to you all the time and I apologize. I guess the one piece that I struggle with is, I guess I would ask of the committee, and I agree with our audit. We're in a weird time. And if we were to find out something on the areas that I was asking with great clarity, that we have a major funding crisis from the state or the federal government, I would want to revisit the topic at a meeting and see if there's anything we can do. Like, we can't control, but next week we could find out we're losing tons of federal funding. So I just wanted to make, I guess I agree with the audit, that is the main thing,
You
but if we
can
have to make it-
always suggest an agenda item, we can always call a
Thank you.
meeting. But they're voting when they vote.
I understand.
And then by the end of February, they're gonna have a vote. So you have till that vote.
I am confident that
something
something, that we'll get insights well after the tape, but that is what it is, but I don't, there's so many things we don't know, that's the part that weighs on me.
Okay. All right, I know this is awful. Thank you for participating in this awful conversation. Okay, where's the page? Okay, schedule of payments. We signed warrant 049S, 056S. Public comment. Once again, if any members of the public here in person wish to make a comment, please raise your hand and you will be invited to do so. Please state your name and address for the record. All remarks should be addressed to the full committee through the chair. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to state their comment and will allow for 15 minutes of public comment. School committee members will not respond to public comments, and we welcome you to email us your questions or additional comments. Just gonna time you to be fair.
Pretty short today.
What?
All right, theme of the, I think this pretty appropriate for the time of the evening. Good evening, Zachary Dyer, 20 Fillmore Street, president of our Easton Educator Association. I want to recognize that we still have over 20 members here with us today that survived with all of you a 4-hour session today. Let me begin by saying that, like many of our Easton educators and many of us here currently, I am tired. We are tired. We are tired first because our workload has increased dramatically, with larger caseloads and class sizes and empty positions that this district can't fill. Our educators have been stretched beyond all reasonable capacity. We have paras acting as substitutes, hallways entirely without teachers, and classes that need more desks loaded in from storage to make our kids fit. All the while, the district pushes educators for more and more with no recognition of the impossibility of what we are asking people to do. It comes as no surprise that when surveyed, our members overwhelmingly feel that leadership, and frankly the state at large, fails to understand the workload and the strain that they have placed on our staff. We are tired because this district abuses our goodwill and refuses to value the labor that we do provide. When we try to negotiate pay for increased workload, we are told at each turn that we are being unreasonable. We are tired of being forced to fight tooth and nail for common sense compromise. It seems to us that the only solution in the district's view is to simply do more work without complaint and without pay. After all, they'll tell us it's for the kids, but it's not for our own kids. After all, we are tired, and our families see it. They see it when we come home short-tempered, when we shut ourselves away to tackle piles of grading that have gotten 20% bigger this year, when we come home to families and are unable to give them versions of ourselves that they deserve. They see it in our health and our blood pressure and our morale. So often we put the children of Easton first, but it comes at a cost that we rarely share with the public. Today we have come to share. We have come to share many of the same frustrations we have shared behind closed doors for too long, frustrations with a lack of transparency from a central administration that has not proven itself worthy of our faith or of our trust. Frustrations with retaliation, intimidation, and gaslighting that have become so common in this district that the majority of our members report they don't feel safe reporting concerns if and when they arise. Frustration with the district that continues to balance their budget by shortchanging and overworking educators that have at long last had enough. This is not the first time you've heard from us, and it's far from the last. But let it be now at long last that we are actually heard. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else tonight?
Kathy Millett, 16th Street. I'm not only an Easton educator, but also a proud parent of 2 Easton students. So thank you to all of the wonderful staff for what you do for my children. But I am also a community member. I've been reflecting a lot on the information we've learned in 2026, and I want to go back to the town meeting in 2024, where we expressed concern about management. The town voted for 2 union members to join the PACE Promoting a Sustainable Easton committee. Our charge on the committee was as follows. PACE is charged with reviewing town and school department staffing, programming, and overall operating positions, including a comparison to comparable communities, and making a report to the 2025 annual town meeting, along with any recommendations for any appropriate actions or remedial measures, all designed to facilitate the promotion of sustainable and quality services in the town of Easton. I believed in our charge of uncovering every stone to see how we could ensure we are doing our best to support all of our town service members while protecting our most vulnerable community members. I did my homework, I asked the hard questions, and I challenged perceptions that I disagreed with, despite the responses I received. I tried to do my best not only as a community member, but as an Easton educator. Through the process, we were asked to share how big the size of the problem was and how we would split between revenue and reductions. I stated an $8 million problem with the information that was shared, and a $4 million reduction, and a $4 million in revenue or override. For me, I could not in good conscience put it all on the taxpayers and saw an even split as a shared burden. The school finance director shared the same exact numbers that I did, a moment that stuck out to me. Last year, February 27th, 2025, the school committee meeting, Dr. Rawls shared a slide, avoiding harmful misinformation, including a bullet point, the towns and schools always find the money. That, along with other points, were underscored as being factually inaccurate. And 10 months later, that harmful misinformation was proven to be correct, although we still haven't seen the data. Another point, comparing districts' central administration data. I would encourage you all to dig a little deeper into that data and see if all those positions exist. And if some are actually not central administrators and are truly support staff personnel or secretarial staff. We were supposed to uncover every stone to ensure that what we were asking from the community was essential. But we left a boulder unturned that had 1.79 million underneath it. We heard from our leadership how they went line by line, and yet it was missed. I spent a lot of time over the last couple of weeks diving back through the data that was shared, wondering how I missed it. I want to apologize to the community and my fellow educators. There must have been questions I didn't ask or data I didn't know to look for. I took on the responsibility of that charge that was given to us, and I did not deliver. I apologize. In closing, we often hear all of you speak about the importance of student voice, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. I just wonder when you will find our voices just as valuable and just as important. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Go ahead.
Ann Sullivan, 65 Summer Street. I just wanted to thank Mr. Getchell for presenting about the science education and how well those science scores have gone up. And I just ask you to remember the NRT, because we cut the NRT last year, and that experiential education has a huge amount to do with that growth in scores and those incredibly high scores. The NRT is an incredible, I mean, I have gone on every single field trip for every single child, every single time, and as a parent, I would happily pay out of pocket to continue to have the NRT in the classroom. It's an incredibly valuable resource that all of our kids are now missing, so please think of that when you congratulate yourselves on those great science scores. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Rebecca Walsh, 111 Howard Street. When I started this job 3 years ago, I was able to make it work financially. I had support coming from my family, as well as graduate school refund checks. I stretched my paychecks, I budgeted carefully. With that support I had, I could manage. 3 years ago, I believed as I gained experience, things would become more manageable and sustainable. A little over a year ago, I lost my dad. That loss in my life changed everything in more ways than one. This loss redirected and changed my life forever. That loss brought grief I still carry, and it created financial strain my family is still trying to recover from. Now I help my family with bills and payments while trying to hold my life together. I want to move out. I want to begin the life I've been working towards, but I cannot simply because I do not make enough to live the life I dream of. I do not earn nearly enough to cover rent. There are weeks I budget my paycheck down to the dollar, mapping out exactly what I can afford in 2 weeks pay cycle, and then again for the month. I am constantly calculating what has to wait and what cannot. That is the reality of my life outside this building. Paraprofessionals are the steady presence for students with any needs. We are the ones who regulate, support, and stay. We build trust with students who rely on us to get through the day, sometimes the only consistent support they have. We are told we are essential, but when compensation does not reflect that, trust begins to fracture. This town truly values paraprofessionals, not just in words, but in action. Then the town must show that through COLA. COLA is not a line item, it is respect. Without it, you lose experienced staff, you lose consistency, and students lose the trusted adults they depend on. That fracture then deepens. I love this job, I love my students, I love the colleagues I work with. But that passion in my job does not pay rent. That passion does not cover basic living expenses. And that passion does not carry the emotional and financial weight of this job forever. We are not asking to be rich. We are asking for a thriving wage. One that allows us to live with dignity, to plan a future, and to stay in the profession we care deeply about. At the end of the day, I want to leave this building knowing I gave everything I had to the students in the community without going home to fear the finances and the current reality of it in my life. I want to plan my future, but that is not my reality right now. I want to plan a future instead of surviving paycheck to paycheck. I love this work, but after everything my family and I have been through in the last year, I need to be able to live and still believe there is a future for me with a thriving wage. I want to live and thrive in life, knowing my dad is looking down proud of his daughter.
All right, we have time for one more comment, if anyone has one. Go ahead.
See what I got, Brett Chiandalgo, 10 Mechanic. One of the most prized qualities of Easton has always been its education system. What was once the shining crown jewel in the crown is fading and at risk of being lost forever. Education is a human profession. As humans, we have needs: health, housing, groceries. In my position, I'm not able to afford rent and groceries. It's one or the other. I am priced out of 300 square foot studio apartments. We give our all to our students and are reassured about how valued we are, but apparently we are not valuable enough to make a livable wage. On top of that, we are told what losses are worthy of bereavement. Last year, a friend of mine passed unexpectedly. I spent the next week in the classroom, holding back tears, hiding in the bathroom just long enough to regain my composure, then head back to class to support my students. This is not the only form of loss minimized in this district. We had our coworkers and friends cut. Our students lost teachers and mentors. Do you know how heartbreaking it is to have a student come up to you on the verge of tears because they lost their favorite teacher? The teacher that finally helped them to understand how to write an essay won't be there next year. We shared this pain with our students and provided what reassurance we could in any way we could. but you can't pour from an empty cup, especially one that's impossible to refill when you have to choose between rent or food.
Thank you, everyone, for speaking tonight. Ken, go ahead.
Cheryl Barker, 15 Sweat Street. Good evening. There is a lot that people don't know about how vulnerable our paraprofessionals are. With 2 snow days, paraprofessionals working in Easton have lost 2 days of pay from their paycheck this week. Every day when school is out of session, we are not paid, meaning that our ability to pay our bills can literally hinge on whether snow closes our school doors. This district got rid of vacation time years ago, making our paras even more vulnerable than they already were. It is time to start making that right as we approach negotiations this winter. The public should know that a para working for years in this district can't break $30,000 within the school year